Dude, no, it's like the first chick you ever date. She has to be crazy. If she's not crazy and you get gifted a normal chick, you're like, oh, she's boring.
Yeah, I actually had a good chat with Liv the other day about this and about asking people for business advice, and the fact that I've sort of changed my tune in the past 12 months about who I listen to for business advice and who I go to for advice. Like starting the business was a jump, and depending on who you talk to, it was either like, fucking do it, sick. You wish you had done it sooner.
Yeah.
And then the other half was like, oh, make sure you're ready. Make sure you've got this before you do this, rah, rah. And I thought, okay, everyone that had done this before was telling me in an optimistic way, do it, fucking do it. You will not regret it. And everyone that hadn't made that jump, so people that were still on a salary, were still doing the 9 to 5, were the ones that were giving me the conservative answers. And I thought, why would I go to people that haven't done this before for advice? Why don't I go to people that have done this before?
Correct.
And ask them how to do it. How did you do it? How did you know it was time? And since I've done that, it's all been positive.
Yeah. My main mentor drives a G-Wagon. I listen to him.
Yeah.
You know why? Because the G-Wagon looks real good in the driveway, But it's crazy, isn't it? And then you also have to have the perspective. If I went back to myself, for me, it's like 5 years ago now, what would I say to him? And it's like, oh, you should have started last year.
Yeah.
You should have started, like, I go back to when I had the coffee van and I go like, what were you doing? Like you had it. It's like, it's not even that you didn't start early enough. It's that you had everything you needed to really take business and life seriously, and you still stuffed around, So I think there's something to like that bit of advice, start as early as possible, and also like fail upwards. Don't be scared to fail. And every time you fail, like, what went wrong?
Yeah.
And
I think as you get older and I guess turn the serious meter up a bit, right? Which is, I guess you've done the same thing, like you've done the trial and error thing. You've tried a few different things, and slowly as you dial up the seriousness, you've got to kind of sacrifice things, and that changes, you're not having as much fun on weekends or whatever. So I think at that stage when we were younger, like we knew that we could dial that up, but we just weren't ready yet, right? Like, it's all part of the growth. It's all part of, getting through your teens and getting through your early 20s and your mid 20s, and then slowly, you're dialing it up. And that's, I think, half the fun is like, okay, what was fun for me 5 years ago is no longer fun for me now.
Yeah.
What is fun for me now is like fucking signing a huge client and like the buzz you get from that. And it's the same with you. Like I can imagine, buying a bit of kit for your garage and you set up, and then getting a big order in, like, there's no better feeling. Like that is what Saturday night was 10 years ago.
Oh man.
And people don't, it's, unless you've experienced it, you don't understand that.
Dude, I got a few indicators that are really like, because you would have it in your business as well. Like I find the invoice number. So like every 100 invoices that I send, I'm just like, really? Nice. Like, whoa, the next big one I've got is like 1,000 invoices. I think I'm at 700 and I know what I'm at 760 or 759 at the moment. And even that is crazy, because it took me a year to send like, 30 invoices. And then the second year you send like 90. And I think this last year, like I sent like 200-300, and you're just like, what is going on? And that, you're right, that dopamine rush that you get when you see a new number tick over, and especially when it's like, I remember when I sent invoice 700, I'm pretty sure it was for like, it might have been like a $400 invoice or like a $600 invoice. And I'm like, oh, 700 would have been nice if it was like a $2,000 invoice. It's like, son, $400 on an invoice 2 years ago would have blown your mind.
Yeah.
And now it's just nothing. Now it's like, that's an entry level invoice. Yeah. And it's like, you're exactly right. That, what was, like watching the sunrise with 4 good mates for us, 8 years ago or whatever it was, has now transformed into this, like, you almost get the same buzz at 10 o'clock having a coffee with each other, talking about like, oh, what are you doing in 6 weeks or 6 months?
100%. Yeah, without a doubt.
It's crazy.
And it's funny how, like, the invoice number thing for you, every business is different, every person is different, right? For me, it's like, so I'm like crazy with the numbers. So forecasting revenue, forecasting, what I've got in the pipeline, and then seeing what that looks like in 12 months' time. And I love playing with it, hey. And like every month I go back on my zero and I really focus on like, okay, what was the P&L, how did it look compared to what I thought it was going to look 6 months ago? Yeah. And comparing what it was to what I thought it was going to be. Huge. And it's a buzz when you beat it. And, obviously 100%. We're in a growth phase, so it's every month it's doing well. So it's a buzz. It's an absolute buzz.
You've got this like really interesting, because you're like, I assume with what you're in, which for the sake of the viewer, you're in financial advice,
financial planning, same thing, yeah.
So I think what you've got, and from what I understand of your industry, you're in like the most hard part is right now. Like when you're starting, trying to get people, especially like you're young, you're probably your average age of your client is somewhere around double your age maybe, and you're trying to ask them to trust you and to believe in what you know.
Yeah.
So it's like you're in the hardest part right now, but you're also, if you're worth anything, in the most amount of growth you're going to have is probably in the next, like from when you started to, let's say, about 18 months from now.
Yeah.
And it has to be, because if you don't, you're essentially not going to survive.
For sure.
So then you've got like, right, I've kind of got 3 goals. I've got like the goal that I need to live, the goal that I would love to achieve, and the goal that's pie in the sky. It's possible, but it's pie in the sky. And if we get there, amazing. If we don't get there, I'm not going to beat myself up.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you tell me, are you landing somewhere between like, fuck yeah, and oh my God?
Well, when I first started it, right, like I had to have some plans in place of like, okay, how am I going to survive, right? Lucky lives working full time still with no kids yet. So like, we've got a bit of freedom there. So before I quit, I wanted to make sure we had 2 years in the bank of like what we needed to live, including live salary. So what was the shortfall? What do we need per week? And then, okay, we need 2 years of that, just so that I didn't have to draw anything from the business from 2 years, right? In a worst case scenario, because with a business like financial planning, the money's in the recurring revenue, right? So you sign a client, it's expensive to onboard them, it's time consuming to onboard them, but then once they're on board, you get a monthly fee, until they leave. So it's not as hard to service them every year as it is to onboard them, right? So the time consuming part's onboarding them. Once they're on, it's not as hard, right? So getting the clients in the door and getting them on board is the goal, right? So obviously had a bit of a goal that we needed to be profitable within 2 years, and not just profitable, but be able to make me draw a salary, right? 6 months in, already drawing a salary. It's nothing like what I was on before I left, but it's a salary. Like, compared to what, I caught up with, every financial planning business has what they call a licensee, right? So it's like a business that sits over them, manages their compliance, does their audits, things like that. And part of them onboarding me as an advisor was, okay, you need to do a business plan. So forecast, how you think you get your clients, how's your revenue going to look, things like that, okay? So we did that, and we caught up, I think it was probably November we caught up. And it must have been 3 months in, and we had a meeting on, okay, where are we? Where do we think we're going to be? And like, that was such a good meeting, because even he said like, wow. Like,
you're doing
amazing,
it.
And like you said, you're right. Like, these people are trusting me with their retirement savings. So that's kind of our biggest thing, is like retirement planning. So pre-retirees, 50 onwards into retirement. What do we do with our super? Is there any ways we can save on tax leading into retirement? Because there's lots of tax advantages on putting your money into super, but that's kind of the main strategy. So they're trusting us with that money, right? If something goes wrong, and you hear horror stories where like some cowboys back in the day would, take their money and put it in a fucking, tree farm or something, and it would go to zero. So people have that in the back of their minds. So it's trying to win that trust, and you can't do that in one meeting. So that's what I was saying. Like, it's a time consuming process. You've got to have 3 or 4 meetings before you get paid $1. So it's hard, but it's fun. It's good, and it's nice to build that relationship with clients. Like, it's my favorite part of the job. Like, it's always been that new client process. Even when I've worked at big firms that have had a huge book of existing clients, I've always enjoyed the onboarding process, because instead of seeing them once a year, you're seeing them 3 times in a month, and you're on the phone to them every day. And to me, that's much more fulfilling than just sitting behind a computer and crunching numbers.
Man, those flies love you, eh?
Oh man, I haven't had a shower.
That was my one fear doing an outside pod. I'm like, fuck, if these flies decide to show up,
that's all right.
Yeah, that's I must admit, there is something that like I'm almost envious in your situation, because you get to have all the conversations and you have no physical labor to your job. It's like at the end of like we get the customer to trust us, we get their business, and then it's like then the actual work starts. And I feel like obviously it's a much less spend, and it's a like, one buy one product spend. It's not like you kind of on a subscription sort of thing whereas you might see yours set up like that. But it's so cool that you can kind of just focus on like, right, here's who I am, here's why I have all this acumen or trustability or, reputation. And then like once you're kind of there, and especially like even the little bit of advice that you've given me and like the results that I've seen in 6 months, you're just like, oh shit, Jack, what else should I put my money in? Like, this is unreal.
Yeah, and look, the thing is, like with markets, like we don't control markets, and that's the first thing I say to clients. Like, if you want to come to me and beat the market every year, like, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to be that advisor, and I don't pretend to be. It's about the strategy for me. Like, well, obviously we need to invest the money, and that's a key part of it, but it's not about that. It's about, the strategy surrounding that.
Yeah. Well, I want to and this might be absolute fucking black and white boring to a lot of people, but I find this super fascinating. So I want to speak to kind of how I've started viewing money this particular year. We're at the end of 2024, and I had a real, so my perspective on money has always been, I trust me more than I trust super and more than I trust the economy as a whole with these industry leaders who I don't know making decisions controlling it, right? And not controlling it, but affecting it in a major way. And I've always believed that rather than putting money away into super, which is what you have to do by law if you have a job, I would rather invest every single cent that I have in young me to build some sort of wealth generating machine that is a business, right? And then relying on the fact that I've got between now when I'm 32 and when I want to retire somewhere in, say, my 60s, say 62, I've got 30 years to build that wealth generating machine. So with that, we go, okay, cool. Every single dollar we make, we're going to put back into the business. Anything that we have spare, we're going to spend on lifestyle, nice house, holidays, cars, jewelry, nice food, whatever. And then I went to the Entrepreneurs Summit. And the Entrepreneurs Summit is a fucking brilliant business that I probably shouldn't have said their name if I'm going to throw them under the bus. Its ideal customer is someone who isn't financially critical thinking, right? They don't have the ability to really stand back and look at the bigger picture, in that they can't stand back and look at what they're offering as like, oh, your business is us believing you know more about business than us. And the crazy thing about business is, you included, me included, my mentors included, no one knows what they're doing. No one knows what they're doing the whole time. They just go problem to problem to problem to problem until you've solved so many problems that you realize business is just solving problems. And especially if you can solve problems for people conveniently, you'll get paid handsomely for it, as long as you understand how to charge for that skill.
Yeah. Do what you're good at and find things that people aren't good at.
Correct.
Do
right?
it.
And it's
Repeat
like,
it.
goes back to like, I have a coffee machine that makes this coffee, right? But if someone can put it in a cup for me and they can say deliver it even better, which is what I used to do, it's like, of course I'll pay. What do you want? 5, 7? Okay, just take the money. Give me the coffee, right?
And it's that little bit better, right? Like you said, you can pay $5,000 for a coffee machine at home. Mm-hmm. You can get it 80% as good.
Yeah.
But that 20%, you're willing to pay $6 for it. And
Every
I'm
day.
willing to pay $6 for it
Twice a day.
100%.
What's that about?
Exactly right. Yeah.
So I went to this Entrepreneurs Summit, and one of the big takeaways from the Entrepreneurs Summit, which was like a light bulb moment to me, it's like, okay, cool. You don't want to believe in super. They didn't say this, but this is my preface going in. Like, you don't want to believe in super, but it'd be ideal to have this sort of like fail safe, let's call it that. Something that you can go like, cool, I'm building this wealth generating machine, but I'm also doing something over here, right? And I think at the same time, I just refreshed on The Richest Man in Babylon, which one of the key things is save 20%. Mm-hmm. Every time you get paid, save 20%. You don't get paid what you get paid anymore. You get paid 80% and 20% automatically get saved. So I'd been doing that. And, I got like $1,000, and then I got $2,000, and then I got $3,000. And all of a sudden, like, this is coming from 4 years of building a business and spending, you make $1, you spend $1.20. That's how business works at the start. So I had this money sitting there. And at the same time, we've gone through what feels like the worst bout of depreciating wealth with inflation as what seems to be possible, And it's like, all right, let's say I bought gold with that, like physical gold, or I bought silver. Or then you start talking about if I bought shares, and then you start talking about, well, if I bought index funds or if I bought ETFs. So it's like it gets like less and less and less and less risky. And at the same time, I just so happened to butt heads with you when I've like walked out of the Entrepreneurs Summit with this idea of like saving your wealth, but betting on something that doesn't depreciate at the same rate as what the dollar does, right? Then it was like, all right, let's just make a super safe portfolio across like 6 ETFs, I think it was, 5 or 6 ETFs. And like maybe, a bit of crypto, maybe have a little bit of savings as well, cool, that sort of thing. And I've since then found that I'm now excited about this idea of this nest egg that's somewhat risky, somewhat diverse, but it's not just holding cash in the bank to one day find out that it's worth 60% of what it was when you first started saving. So can you speak to that and tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, so, and it depends from person to person, but like just using you as a scenario, right? If you want to save a bit of money in this 20% or whatever, that's fantastic. But for you, right, that might return you 7% a year for the next 30 years, right? Fantastic. The compounding effects of that, huge, right? And that's fantastic. But you know what's going to return you more than 7% is reinvesting money into this business or whatever that is, reinvesting money into yourself, right? Same as me. Like, I don't have any money invested other than my super, right? Which I'm obviously, you know, paying myself a salary. Some is getting put into my super. But for me, it's like any dollar that I have, I wanted to invest it into my business, invest it into my lifestyle, like my house and things like that. Because for me and for you, like, you're going to get such a high return out of putting that money back in yourself, doing more courses, learning more things, like building the business. You know, that is going to return you more than 7% a year.
Yeah,
100%. Okay. So it's different if you're someone that just is a salary, you know, works on a salary and will forever, then it's very important that you're putting money into your super that your employer's putting in, you're not touching it, because that's going to be your retirement. And who knows where the age pension is going to be by the time we're 67, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why the government introduced super, you know, 40 years ago, was because they knew that we've got an aging population and we will have a continually aging population. So we need to make sure that we can afford to pay these pensions. How do we do that? We try to get people self-funded, and that's what superannuation is. So it's basically saving you and making you save for a self-funded retirement. The only, you know, there's lots of like advantages to super. So if you're closer to retirement and you're in a huge tax bracket, you can get tax deductions for putting it in. That's where I recommend it. Like, I very rarely would recommend someone in their 20s or 30s put money into super unless they're in the highest tax bracket, because it's much better off paying off your non-deductible debt, such as your primary residence, things like that, things that, you know, you don't get a tax deduction for, compared to just putting it in your super and earning 7% a year. Like, it's important, and it's important to have some going in, but it's definitely not a priority, you know, at all.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is like, I feel like the language that you're talking, because like they really don't teach us anything about this in school. You know, like, I mean, you learn about. I feel like the first time you get paid, you're like, what's this bit down the bottom that they're taking? It's like, oh, that's tax, and you're like, whoa, that taxing you've been talking about forever now makes sense to me. And then you find out like, oh, my first job paid me 40 grand a year. And my second job paid me 60 grand a year. And then you get your first crazy job where you're earning over 100 grand a year, and you're like, I'm taking home the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? It's like, then you find out about these tax bracket things. So where, like, there would be a population, I mean, there's a massive section of the population that purely doesn't understand that there is actually ways of, I mean, your average person goes and gets a job, and, you know, they buy their own boots, and they buy maybe a pair of glasses for work, and they're like, oh, I get to like deduct this from my taxable income. What's like step number one, or like that's step number, what's step number two for starting to understand a little bit of like what's so familiar to you for someone who doesn't know much about tax, I guess?
Get a good accountant. Honestly, like, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people come to me, and younger people come to me and say, oh, you know, I want some financial advice. We have a chat, and I say, you don't need an advisor, you need an accountant. You need a good accountant, a proactive accountant. Not one that bends the rules, but one that goes up to the line.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's key, because then particularly if you're a high income earner working FIFO or something, like, there's lots you can probably be claiming. I'm not an accountant, so I couldn't help them with that. But getting an accountant that can, like, that's key for sure. That's step number one when you're young. Because as a financial advisor, like, we're looking at investing money that you already have, or maybe borrowing money to invest. But that's probably, you know, 40 plus year old territory, right? Yeah. When you're young, it's about saving, buying a house, paying your debt off as much as you can.
Yep.
Not buying fucking $100,000 cars with debt, you know, making smart financial decisions. You know, other than that, like, it's just about knowing what your goals are. That's the key. Like, what do we want to do? Do we want to buy a house? And that's the thing I talk to a lot of clients about is, you know, friends come up to me and say, Jack, is it, you know, I want to buy a house. Is it the right time, right? Is it the right time to buy a house? But, you know, we're renting, we want to buy a house. And I say to them, like, we need to make, you know, there's two decisions you make in life when it comes to money, right? And buying a house. Is it a financial decision or a lifestyle decision? I think I had this conversation with you before, but if you're wanting to buy a house to live in that you're going to live in for 20 years, that's a lifestyle decision. I know it's still technically a financial decision, but you need to look at that as a lifestyle decision, right? If you say, Jack, I want to buy an investment property, okay, then that's an investment decision. That's a financial decision, okay? So it's different. If you're wanting to buy a house for a lifestyle decision, to buy one to live in for 20 years, it doesn't matter where markets are. It doesn't matter if it's now, fine. It doesn't matter. Because in 20 years' time, it'll go up, it'll go down. Who knows? You know, even if you bought at the GFC, you'd still be up 20 years later, right?
Yeah.
For a house. So it's different if you say I want to buy an investment property, because then we go, well, maybe it's not the right time, particularly in, you know, WA, like, it's just gone nuts, right?
Yeah.
It still could be. It still could go crazy. I don't have a crystal ball, but maybe it's not the right time. But if you're buying for a lifestyle decision to live in for 20 years, fucking do it.
Yeah.
Do it, because the long-term average is going up.
Yeah, and also in comparison to your rental that you're in at the moment, that is dead money.
For sure.
And this is, I think that's the crazy thing is, well, it speaks to a heaps bigger thing. If you're paying, what is a normal rent price at the moment, $500 a week in rent, you're better off losing a bedroom and struggling to make $800 a week in repayments and live in your own fucking house.
Yeah.
Make sure that your foundations with your partner is strong. Make sure that this is a person that you want to go through the struggles with, and then get struggling.
Yeah, particularly when inflation's like this, right? Like, we don't know how long it's going to be sticky for. It's been a lot stickier than they thought. So who knows how long it's going to be like this for. But while inflation's so high, that's good for debt.
Yeah.
Right? Higher inflation is very good for debt. It essentially devalues your debt.
Yeah.
Right? So what $500,000 of debt is now, in 10 years' time, that might be $350,000 in today's dollars, right?
Like, you're borrowing on the inflated value of the dollar.
So the $500,000 doesn't grow, but your wages grow. Your wages grow with inflation. So it actually outstrips it usually, or even if it goes up in line with inflation, your debt's essentially devalued. Right?
Yeah, I think also what has inflated is our minimum, our perceived minimum value of comfort. Right? There's a lot of people that have 6 subscriptions to streaming services, that are buying new board shorts every couple of weeks, that are driving around in a car that does the same job as one half the value, to impress people that don't give a fuck about what car they drive. And it's like, I know one big thing I did with my businesses, especially at the start when I hit like zero, and I'm like, okay, now I'm asking, my now fiance to support me. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to ask her to support me, there is literally no comfort that I can appreciate anymore, right? So everything, like I can't go, oh yeah, but I still got to have, like a coffee every day that I pay for. It's like, you're on instant, you every single new piece of clothing that you get is now from the Salvation Army. And there's nothing wrong with that, because if you're making that sacrifice, it's like for something greater than you. And it's like, I don't want to get too preachy, but my shit looks pretty good now, and it's because I sacrificed a lot for a long time.
And that makes it better.
It does. It makes the new board shorts feel somewhat different, And I think that whole idea of people going like, oh, there's no way I can afford a house now. It's like, what you can afford to do right now is strip out all the shit in your life that you don't actually need. And like, hate to bring it to attention right now, but the amount of shit I've seen on Facebook and Instagram the past couple of days that people gave and received for Christmas is like, you don't. If they unless they directly ask for it, you're better off giving them nothing and a beautifully written card saying, hey, the right gift for you didn't come to me, so I didn't waste my money on getting you a fucking pot plant or a this or that. And I'm not saying anything specific about anyone, I'm just saying in general.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't be sucked in by this idea that you need to buy something every day. You don't need to. You get the gist of what I'm saying.
100%. And same conversations with my family this year. Like, we're at the point now where, and not like expensive shit, but like if we want something, we go fucking buy it. Yeah. Like if we want to buy a new fridge or whatever, like we just, you go buy it. You save for a week and you go buy it, right? Whatever it may be. But like, you don't need, I don't know, just gifting these days. It's just fucking time consuming. Like having a list of 10 people to go buy gifts for, the time to then think of a good gift, and then you can't think of it, so you just buy them something shit or $100 gift voucher or $50 gift, whatever it might be. Yeah. It's just, I'm giving them a gift voucher and they're giving me a gift voucher to things that's just going to sit in our cupboard for 2 years until we have to go spend it.
Yeah, and who wins? The corporation who sold it to you?
Not even that. It seems to me a bit silly. Like you said, a nice card or something that actually means something with some effort is different, but everyone's different.
It's actually funny, because then you go, I bought Jack a gift card the 1st of December for $100, 2024. He spends it on the 16th of June, 2025. The cost of whatever he buys has gone up 8%.
Why do you think companies like gift cards so much?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What percentage never gets spent? Yeah. And by the time they spend it, what can they actually get for that?
2 years down the track, $50 might only get you $40 worth of goods. Or
ridiculous, hey?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know, I feel like the percentage, like people go like, oh, like chocolate's gone from, $4 a block to $7 a block. And you go, because it's still under $10, you're like, oh, it's still not that crazy. It's like the percentage increase between 3 and 7. If that was on a house, you would shit your pants twice. Yeah. It went from 300,000 or 400,000 to 700,000 in 6 months. What happened? So it's like this whole, and I think a lot of people do talk and stress about the cost of living, But I feel like we still don't really take it that seriously because
a lot of people stress about the cost of living, but they're not willing to make those sacrifices, right? Like, I won't get too specific in case they hear this, but like, I know someone that, single person, in their 40s, lives by themselves on a salary, on a fair salary, but, only person in a 4x2, was complaining about, I want to pay increased rent, And it's like, well, okay, you're living by yourself in a 4x2. Huge. Why don't you get a roommate? Oh, no, I don't want to, live by myself for 10 years. I don't want to get a roommate. Well, why don't you go rent somewhere, get a 3x1 or a little unit in the city or something rather than getting this huge 4x2 and paying, over half your salary a week in rent. No, I won't do that. Okay, well, you won't do that. You won't get a roommate. You won't make changes to your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. But people don't realize, okay, I can make these small changes and have a huge, better outcome on my life, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm comfortable. And exactly like you said before with the flashy new cars and that, they don't want people to think they're going backwards.
Yeah.
For even if it's for a short amount of time, they don't want people to see that. If they then move from that house to a smaller house, then their friends think they're, or what's going on with them or whatever. But it's silly because then in 2 years' time, they're going to be in a much worse position.
Yeah. And also they're the same friends that'll be like watching you on Instagram going like, looks like Jack's not doing too well. And it's like, they're not calling up going, hey man, do you need a room to stay in or whatever? Like that's the big thing that got me. Like I remember when I was so dialed into like the car's got to be clean just in case we pull up and someone sees me in a dirty car. Like now when I even say that out loud, you're just like, no one cares what your car looks like. What even car you have, as long as you're happy when you drive it, But the people, because this is the thing, when I was having those thoughts, I knew the people's opinions that I was worried about, And now we're so many years down the track and I don't even know what those people are doing with their life, let alone them paying attention to mine.
Yeah. I heard something really good, this is a few years ago, about just using the car one, for example, right? So when you look at someone in a fancy car, like, I don't know, say it's a new Merc or something, right? You look at them, we're not looking at them going, wow, that person is so cool, right?
Yeah.
That's what we think everyone's thinking, but it's not that. You're thinking, fuck, I would look cool in that car.
Yeah.
Right? So we're not even comparing ourselves to them. We're saying we wish we were in that car. Yeah. We're not even thinking about the person. We're thinking about us being in that car.
That's so
it's
true.
Not even like, oh, that person's so fucking cool. It's like, I would be cool if I had that car. So we've got this it's kind of wrong in our brains, right? Like we're not even impressing anyone. Trust me.
It always throws itself forwards.
Yeah.
You're just giving people the perception of what their life would be with your possession.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not, even if we had that car, people wouldn't be looking at us going, fuck, we're cool. They'd be going, fuck, I'd be cool if I had that car.
I must admit there is a certain part of me that goes, yes, that's 100% right. The big thing I've twigged onto the past 6 months, I'd say, and this is only since I normalized pulling a wage out of my business, which is when I feel like business actually started for me. Like until then I was kind of flicking marbles in the sand and seeing how to win. And now it's like, oh, now I've got a taste of winning because I win every Sunday night. Money goes into my account. That's my money, And when I see, as I said before, when my mentor bought a G-Wagon, I was so fucking hyped for him.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
You're a friend of his though. That's friendship,
yeah.
right? That's not just seeing a random person on the street.
But
that's different.
It's also, so the random person on the street thing, 100%, what you said, 100% applies. I've only just started to be able to, and even reverse engineering people's wins from years ago. Understanding when... I want to get too specific with examples, but when someone called me and said, man, I just made the last repayment on my house. And I immediately, I remember when I heard that call and I was like, I can't wait till I get to say that to someone. That's a thought. Yeah. And then going back and having the revision on that thought of that friend saying that to you and you're like, that moment for them must have been absolutely insane.
It's cool they wanted to share that with you. Yeah. That's a moment, man. That's cool.
Whoa,
yeah. That's huge.
But I feel like, and we kind of go back to where we started here. You have to go through that process of being an egotistical, arrogant sort of human, man, whatever, to get to a point of humbling yourself enough to go, wow, that person was having a moment, and they wanted me to know about that moment. And that wasn't how fucking cool am I? That's I'm just happy. I won in this fucking hard life. I had a win, So weird.
And it's hard to find people to share that stuff with, right? Particularly with business, because a lot of people you talk to that haven't been in business or, don't have any interest in business, you can't go up to them and say, fuck, Jack, I just signed this huge new client or I made X this year. it's stuff that you want to be able to share, and there's not really people to share it with. So
you want to put it on Facebook. Like, you just want to put a status. You're just like, I just had a $30,000 month, and everyone's going to be like, look at this fucking asshole.
Yeah, exactly right. Like,
100%.
And it's hard to do, but that's why I think things like, this little group we're starting, things like that, like I think that's so key to be around people, because it's like anything, and I'm not saying anything new here, but you are who you hang around with. Like, you are the sum of your 5 closest friends.
100%.
So if you're hanging around with people that aren't doing similar things to you, or are sort of staying in the same spot and just, repeating the 9 to 5, like, that's cool and they're good friends to have, but like, I want to be around people that want to grow, that want to do something crazy.
Yeah.
And that, if you don't do that unless you're around other people. So it's trying to find similar sort of people to be around, where you can have that coffee and say, man, fuck, this was the month I just had, or these are the issues that I'm having with staff, or, with compliance, or whatever it might be. Just having people to talk to about it that want to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also, like, I don't know what vein it fits into, but there's I feel like I'm on like level 2 or level 3 of that now. Actually, you know what? Level 4, because the first level is weeding out the shit. And that's probably the hardest one. When you just like look around, you're like, oh, every time I hang out with this dude, I leave feeling angry, or I leave feeling robbed, or I leave feeling low energy. You know what I mean? I leave worrying about stuff that doesn't matter. I leave worrying about their problems, and I literally can't even count anymore how many people that I've just been like, that's the last time I ever hang out with that person.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It sucks because there's something about that person that made you want to initially hang out with them. But getting to that point where you're like, I can't keep costing myself for the sake of this person or this relationship or this thing, this idea that I built.
Every relationship takes time and effort, right? And it takes some emotional effort. And that's why, man, I got like a pretty small amount of core friends, because like every friend you have that you've got to maintain that relationship with, that's effort and oomph. I call it oomph, right? Like, how many fucks can you give?
Yeah.
Oomph that you could be giving to your business, or you could be giving to your partner's relationship that's 10x more important, or you could be giving to your business, or whatever it might be. So it's important. I think as you get older, it's very common, but as you get older, like your friendship group thins out. I've been very lucky to have like a core group of mates my whole life, but it's one of those things that, you don't want to have people that are just dragging you down.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get rid of that, because like you said, as you go through time in life, like, what was fun on a Saturday night is no longer fun on a Saturday night. It's now Sunday morning drinking a coffee with your mates or whatever. Yeah. But they were in your life for a period of time, and during that period of time, they were good to have in your life, because that was the Saturday night, mate.
Yeah,
or that was the, whatever
that
it was.
That was a green light for you.
Exactly right. So it changes.
I think the
Yeah,
it is recording.
I
have this moment at least once every time, But
Has
yeah,
that ever happened?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, shit.
Of course. Everything that can happen has happened. Of course. Like you get... Dude, I remember the old... We're not going to talk about on the podcast for longer than a minute, because it drives me nuts on other people's podcasts. But I remember one, I was recording myself on the phone, and you always have it with your camera facing you, so you can see it, that it's recording and all that. But for this whatever reason, I put it on cinematic and had the other camera facing me. I've got a little lapel mic on. I pressed record. I sat down, 2-hour rant. Went and had a look at it. It's like, battery died 3 minutes in. So I just sat there talking to myself for 2 hours for nothing, And it's like, I remember that was like the first big time, and just like, I deserve it. I'm an idiot,
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's got to happen at least once.
It does. It does. And every single little thing has to happen at least once, So now it's just like, you've got this, I have this internal checklist that just, But the level 2, so like the first level is like getting rid of the shit. The level 2 is like, okay, the 5 closest friends thing. In an ideal world, who are my 5 closest friends? Not who's at arm's reach. Like, if I could have anyone, who would they actually be? And then reversing that list to like go, okay, well, I can hit 2 of those for sure. Like, I can definitely ask this person to be a mentor, and I can definitely spend more time with this person in my friends group who has great priorities. And then the other 3, it's like, all right, let's just work on the easiest one to get. I'm going to start being around this person more often. I'm going to ask them out for coffee. Then when I ask them out for coffee, I'm going to listen to them. I'm not going to tell them about me, So you start doing this sort of thing. Then I feel like the level after that is, okay, now I've got 5 to 10, let's say 7, let's say 8 people in my life that I'm like, cool, I spend all of my time communicating and being with these people. And then I know in those people, when I have a problem that I need to solve, that I just need to brainstorm and spew onto a whiteboard and break down exactly that's that person. Then I've got someone that when I'm having trouble communicating, and I'm having trouble maybe relating or conveying, I go to this person. And then when I have a financial trouble, I speak to this person, because each of those people have a specific skill set that is amplified when I'm with them. So I don't go to this person and talk about like, oh, I'm having this interpersonal problem. They're just like, brother, like, just make more money and then just pay them to get out of your life. And you're like, oh, you're my financial guy. I forgot, you know? And I feel like that's the real, like when you hone that in, then it turns into that problem solving thing we're talking about as a business owner. You can then just like zip through problems, like zip, 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 zip. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, cool. I can just go and fucking be in the garden with Louie now because I don't have to carry all this stress with me. You know, so that being able to A, find those people, and then B, like really get them, and also like remembering that these people are your friends. Yeah, you know, so it's like that's a skill in itself, not just sitting down and being like, here's all the troubles of the world that I have, you solve them for me. You know,
and that's people skills, right? And like it's knowing to, and I guess that's one of the funny things with business, right? Like, over time, you know, your business associates, whatever you want to call them, people that you know through business do become your friends. And that's a cool transition, right? Yeah. Like it's sort of changing from a purely business relationship to now friendship. And that process is fun and good. And that's one I really like as well. Like,
yeah, I think you're one of two people that like I was friends with before we had businesses, and then we had businesses, and now we've got this common thing of like, you don't even know how to like summarize. It's just business, you know? Yeah. And then like the young people in businessing is cool. Like I met both of those dudes the other day for the first time.
How good was that coffee, man?
Man, by the end of that conversation, just like, oh, these are my motherfuckers now. Like I like them, you know? Yeah. I think the one thing about business is you kind of do hide behind a wall 90% of your life building your thing. Yeah. And then when you peek your head out, it's like really hard to identify like, oh, actually 9 o'clock on a weekday morning in Little Spencer, majority of people in there are fucking mums or business owners.
And it's funny, right? Because even within your business, it's hard to talk about this stuff within your business, because a lot of the time you're talking about maybe wins or how the business is doing well or how the business is struggling. Like you can't share that with your employees, or you can't share that, you know, to the public. So it's nice having people that, you know, have similar issues within their business that you can. So, but that was the thing I found so fascinating about that coffee was there was 4 of us and we're all so different personality wise. You know, we probably would have linked up other than me and you, like outside of that. Yeah. But then having that connection and then being able to just talk for 2 hours about everything and anything. Yeah. And it was one of those things where like I left that coffee feeling more energized than I have in a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first thing I could think about was, when are we doing that again? Yep. You know, and then like the ideas that were getting thrown around, man, were incredible. Like I think that's got legs, and I'm keen to see where it goes next year.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, without getting too deep into that, even when we're talking about that, they're like, oh, we need to do this like 4 times a year. I'm like, if this is good, you can do this once a week and people will show up, you know? Because the same thing, and all of my podcasts all come back to the same thing, and I'm sorry for the listener who doesn't want to hear this, but it's the same with like religion, dude. That's the reason why people go to church every week, because you leave there feeling recharged. You know, it's like that thing that you're practicing, and like what we practice is business, what we practice is profitability and growth. And then when you're around other people that practice the same things, you're just like, oh man, I've been so dialed into perceiving this particular way. And then I sat down with Jack and I was telling him about how passionate I am about this one thing. And then he goes, have you ever looked at it from this point of view? And now I'm like, oh, now my scope has just got a little bit wider. And it's like, it's the same with faith, you know? And it's like that, dude, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is a tutorial on how to use the Bible, right? I know it's a fucking crazy thing to throw out there, but it literally is like, and then it works the other way. My faith in religion has helped me be a better businessman, because I have narratives on how to deal with problems. I know how to assess people. I know how to like judge myself. I know how to stay true to a goal, you know, because of that. It's so interesting to make these correlations, and it's all quite recent for me, so I'm like really excited. But it's the exact same, and the reason that this is apparent to me is because like less than a week later, I was catching up at the same place at the same time with dudes that I've never met before. They just invited me because I went to church, a particular church. And it's like at the end of that meeting, I'm just like, I want to see these people every week. It's a fortnightly thing. And to that fact, one of the dudes from that meeting, I now have organized to see every week because of how I felt after it.
Nice.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
What got you into that? Like what was the sort of catalyst?
Business.
Yeah.
100% business. Like the story is really simple. I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Got recommended by a YouTuber called Daniel Vass, who's a drop shipping guru, I guess you could call him. Someone who was just like young and found himself like trying to make money in the middle of COVID. Gets into drop shipping, does reasonably well, repeat. Now he's got money. Then he's like doing, I wouldn't call it coaching because that gives it like almost a negative connotation on the whole YouTube making money sort of industry. But a very just like, hey guys, here's a 15-minute video on just what I think. Fuck you if you like it. Fuck you if you don't. Here's 5 books you should read. Like I'd never, outside of reading, Captain Underpants and shit, I'd never really read a book. And I was under the perception that I can't read. Like I can't read because I read over the lines and they get all jumbled. It's like, yeah, dude, you can't do wheelies because you don't practice them. You got to practice reading to know how to read. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to read the books that he says. First one, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Second one, Psycho-Cybernetics. Third one, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's a good one.
Yeah, amazing. And that, I think in that order as well, 4 and 5 are great books. I forget what they are off the top of my head, only because I've read so many fucking books since then, But I remember when I read Think and Grow Rich, it was like the words were jumping off the page and applied to everything that I had thought of before. It was like it gave a framework to how I felt as a human, And all it is finding something that you're passionate enough about to work towards. Mm-hmm. And I remember at that point, it was just like, I need to make enough money to not drive a truck again. Very simple formula. So whatever that is, it's like, all right, make a dollar figure. It's this amount. Make a time frame. It's then. Now make that into a statement and reverse engineer the steps so you know what to do today, tomorrow, the day after, every day until you get to that goal. Now, the goal that I set, I still haven't reached. And the timeline that I set it was a year at the time, and we're 5 years later. But the practice that it taught me was to continuously tell myself that I am going to do this. I am going to do this. I am a winner. I am powerful. I'm financially intelligent. I'm stable. I'm in love. I'm loved. I'm part of a bigger picture. I have a community, right? So all these things. So with that then allowed me to go like, oh, I am a great reader. I continue to read. I continue to digest this knowledge. I am a great speaker. I continue to tell people about these things that I'm learning and they get something from it, hence the podcast, hence the following, right? So these things all fall in a line. And I realized that part of this, making this statement of what I wanted to achieve and the practice of saying it when you wake up, which is when your mind is most about malleable, you wake up, you say it straight away, right? It's kind of like brushing your teeth with your left hand, looking in the mirror and saying, I'm powerful. You're activating the other part of your brain that makes you think and aware, right? So I'm waking up and telling myself, I am, right? Right before I go to sleep, I am. I go to sleep, I dream about it, literally dream about it, right? So now the whole subconscious part of my mind is saying that I'm powerful, I'm a business owner, I'm intelligent, I'm wealthy, I'm loved. So now the whole theme of who I am changes from a drug-taking, rule-breaking, like wanting to just live outside of society, out of the box and fuck everyone and I know everything. I'm now breaking that spell of wherever those thoughts and ideas came from. I'm breaking them one at a time, 1% at a time, and recreating this person who I am inside, right? So we get a year into that and I'm like, fuck, I haven't made $1 million yet, but my life looks different, bro. I feel different. I feel like I'm bright. I feel like the world got a little bit smaller and I got a little bit bigger and I belong in it, right?
Nice.
And then year 2 comes around and you're like, shit, I moved out of a caravan and into a house, right? I'm making money. I've got systems. Like my business has gone from this idea into things that people come around, they're like, wow, like look at you remember coming around to my studio and you'd be like, you got stuff in here. There's like shirts on the wall. You got I had a screen printer at one stage, and then I had this big vinyl cutter and printer, and then the vinyl it got bigger, and then I got these big tables, and then I got stools, and I got a podcast, and all of these things started happening. And then year 3 comes around, you're like, oh my God, it's now doubled in size. It went from being like this to like a little bit bigger, to then way bigger, to then way bigger, and now we're year 5, and I live in like a palace. And my grass is green, and I'm healthy, and my practices have like refined into this thing that I don't even recognize anymore. And I still do the same thing. I still wake up. I say that I'm powerful. I go through the thing. I drink water. I have my little practice, right? And the same thing before I go to sleep. Now, during all this process, the question was, how did we get here, right? Through this process, you start to realize there's these weird similarities between everything this book taught and the structure of religion in general. You wake up, you pray. You practice what you're trying to be, right? There is an ultimate version, an example, if you will, of how you should live through this mythical character, Jesus, right? That is in alignment with the character that I create in my mind, who I see as a perfect version of myself that I'm trying to be like, right? So if I could be anything that I wanted, what's the best case scenario of it? Imagine it, see it, now replicate it, right? I'm not asking you to be great. I'm asking you to replicate a great version of yourself. Now imagine that great version of yourself is without any single fault, lived their entire life without sin, right? So now it's starting to go like, oh, okay, I see what you did. You bastardized religion into a version of making money. That's what this is. So then I go, okay, well, if that's the case, let's lean into the religion thing and see what happens. And then, in my personal experience, this isn't the case for everyone. This isn't financial advice. I'm just saying, right? It worked for me.
Yeah.
And the more I leaned into it, the greater the result.
Yeah.
Now, I do know that part of that whole structure, that whole dogma, that whole literature is to not only lead by example, but to speak his word. Because if I'm having this result and I'm just a normal human, I'm just a dude who was born and who lived and who was a prick and who done bad things and who learnt the lessons, you can give away as much as you possibly can so that people don't have to make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
So that while they do have to have their own story, they don't have to actually hit rock bottom to know that there's a rock bottom. Not that I hit rock bottom, but I still went fairly deep. You know, it's like, that's so not essential. It's so not essential. And if I can somehow make it cool, I have a platform, I literally have a microphone in front of me, I can literally say things and people will literally hear them. It's like, well, why not talk about the good shit? And now I'm on this path of like, you go to church, you meet this community, talking about the people that you hang out with and becoming them. Like, these people just want to be like, oh, you're new. Like, how are you? Who are you? What's your story? Like, great to see you here, you know? You rock up for the second time and they're like, you're back.
Yeah.
Hey, come here, give us a hug. What are you doing? You're just like,
nice.
Are they taking the piss out of me? Like, or are they just nice
Yeah,
people? And you're
yeah.
like, they're just fucking nice people,
Yeah.
bro. Wouldn't you want to be a nice person? Wouldn't you want someone else to feel how you felt just then? Because you can be that person and you can practice being that person.
Yeah.
And in fact, you are that person. You've just been pretending to be someone else this whole time. So it's this weird, like, and like, I get it, man. I get it. I've spent the majority of my life trying to like be the opposite end of the magnet against religion because fuck rules, bro. I don't need your rules. Like, I'm out here living. But dude, it just seems to be that the more I lean into it, the better results I get.
And it cops a bad flack. But for me, religion, no matter what religion it is, it's just a framework of how to live a better life, right? And like, I've read a lot of Jordan Peterson, I know you have as well, and he's a big advocate for it. You know, he doesn't ever say like, oh, I'm religious, but he talks about, you know, biblical accounts and how it relates to life and telling stories through, you know, through the Bible and then how that translates to life. And it's,
Correct.
You'd be surprised with how much of it then translates to business and to your personal life. And it all does. It's all, people give it a lot of shit. But for me, it's like, okay, just using, you know, the 10 Commandments as an example, right? If you live your life by those 10 Commandments, you will generally be happier than someone that didn't. And look, no one ever does it completely. No one ever goes to church every Sunday and, you know, never sins at all, right? It's common sense. But if you can just aim for that, like exactly like you said, aim for that. And then if you can get somewhere near it, you're going to be better off than you were.
100%.
You know, it's simple. It's, why do you think it cops such a bad flack, particularly at the moment, right? Like, you know, if you say, oh, I'm religious, a lot of people go, ooh, you know, they don't know about it. What do you reckon the reason is?
Ooh. Do I want an entertaining answer for you, or do I want the real answer? I think it sits somewhere in the middle. I think that the entire human experience is a struggle between good and bad, right? There's a wrestle with yourself, which is essentially a high version of you, God. And then there's a wrestle with the rules and dimension that you live within, right? And I think that everything is accessible to you, right? Famine is accessible to you. Opulence is accessible. Opportunity, abundance, wealth, greed, lust, whatever you want, in the greatest extent and measure you can imagine. If you want all the money in the world and you want all the evil in the world and you want all of the disgusting opportunities that feel good in the moment in the world, you can have them. And in fact, you can make contracts and agreements with higher powers than you to get them. And they'll respond. And you'll get it all. I truthfully believe that is the case. I think that the reason it gets such a bad name is because selfish and greedy people have made those contracts before us and have changed the world in a particular way that now glorifies the idea that living a pure life in light with the Lord is for some reason not cool, or it's gay, or it's, fill in the negative connotation of the idea. And now we have a greater job where it was just like you can live a life where you're fighting good and bad. You can decide if you want to murder your neighbor or sleep with his wife or do whatever. It's like now you get pushed through fucking black magic as soon as you wake up. Like look at porn, look at Instagram, look at this, look at that, right? That's the first evil you have to fight. And then you go and try and find something in the pantry or in the fridge that doesn't destroy your body from the inside out. You fight another evil. And then you turn on TV, another evil. And then you listen to podcasts about, a funny podcast, and you realize like, oh, this is just another version of evil. Like there are literally so many forms of evil that are now overcoming us. And part of that, the byproduct of that, is that good isn't cool. I don't know about you, Jack, feeling awesome and feeling like I'm adding value and feeling like I'm helping people and being a part of something that is greater than me. It's not just cool, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's the shit. It's what I actually aspire to, And I think that, I was going to say this before, part of my job with my faith now is to make it cool. My job is making clothes. If I can make clothes that say Jesus is King on it and I get the right person wearing it, I might get 1,000 people wearing it. Yeah. Now that's cool. That's cool. But dude, you think like, I was looking at Spitfire wheels, in Hillsies. All of their shit has like a demonic tinge to them. For some reason, it's really cool. Even I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's badass. But it's evil. The smallest evil is evil. You know what I mean? It's like it sucks that you got to look through it through the lens of like, is it black or is it white? It's one or the other. Even if it's a little bit, it's still not on the side of purity. I think the reason that it cops so much flack now is because for so long, a power greater than us has been winning. And it's now the job of those who live in the light to take that power back. And I actually think it's happening.
I agree.
I think you'll find like more young people right now are looking for a truth.
I think you see that a lot with, and I hate to then move this to politics, right? But you saw this a lot with the last US election, right? Everything is Trump's bad, bad. The right is bad, conservatives bad. But I don't think that's true. And even when I was going through uni, like I was very, very progressive on a lot of things, right? And over the last 10 years, I've slowly gone, okay, well, why do I have that view? And then transition to probably what I'd say now, like center right. Okay. And again, hate putting a big blanket over it, but you have to sort of explain it somewhere.
Yeah.
And just seeing everything that was going on with the US and the truth telling that was just non-existent, right? And the attacking, like to me, and I relate that to because conservatives are generally more religious, right? If you're looking at the US, like they're, heavily religious. But to me, like that whole US election was just a huge eye opener to me about how like, okay, the pendulum has swung. Like, there's so much going on over there now that it just doesn't make any sense, to me. So what do you think the outcome of all that was? Like, do you think that was a big catalyst for it? Do you think that was sort of a sign that the pendulum has swung,
Dude, I just look at, like when that was happening, like for some reason I've always felt organically more... When Trump went on Rogan, I was like, okay, I know how hard it is to have a conversation where you look at someone in the eyes for longer than an hour, not interrupted by your phone and this and that and someone coming out. To like really do that, you have to understand who you are.
Yeah, you can bullshit for 30 minutes. You can't bullshit for 30 hours or 3 hours.
You can bullshit for like 2.5 minutes. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they have the debates and all that, and you're just like, brother, what is any of this? No one gets a chance to properly talk and say their opinion and go on a rant and like get passionate about things. Like I know someone who does get passionate and go on rants that I need 5 minutes. I need like 2 minutes to get going, a minute to realize what I'm talking about, and then like 10 minutes uninterrupted to deliver it. Yeah. Right? Now, not saying that I'm the best at ranting, but when I saw that with Rogan, and when he went on Nelk Boys, he went on Theo Von, he went on Rogan. It's like, oh, this is someone who like actually speaks he might be a great actor, and he is a great actor, but he actually speaks from something, right? That rings more true to me than any sort of clip, even if it's in the direction of what I want to lean from someone else. Because I know as someone who makes clips and goes on rants, I can make you believe whatever the fuck I want, even regardless of what I said. I can change the music about something that I'm talking about passionately and make you think that I'm not telling the truth, and therefore I'm changing the direction or perspective of what I'm saying in your eyes. So I think the thing there, and this coinciding with the fact that I would ask who I believed, all my smart friends, like, what do you think of Trump? They're like, oh, he's a rapist and he's this and that. And it's like, do you only watch free-to-air TV?
Yeah.
Like, have you listened to an interview of his? Oh, I'd never listened to an interview of his. So you would never listen to the perspective of someone that you don't agree with? Do you understand how like...
How important that is to be able to have a conversation with someone you disagree with.
Dude.
And disagree, but still shake hands after and have a beer.
That's the whole point, you know? So that, to me, said there is the fact that he would go and have these conversations for longer than an hour, there's a shift going on.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for so long, the greater population of humanity was almost psyoped by shortening attention spans and really sexy content to make people believe whatever they want. You know, like, buy this chewing gum, listen to this music, you know, go to this particular movie, whatever is based off these little clips. And now all of a sudden you got someone who's going like, oh no, I'll shoot the shit for 2 hours. Are you ready? And I think there's something there that aligns with truth, and truth aligns with overall purity and goodness. I'm not saying that that's a representative of what Trump is, but I do think that there's something there where people are now hungry for, like, no, what do you actually mean? What are you actually saying? Because, I mean, Biden's saying nothing, literally nothing. Kamala Harris, nothing. She's just laughing, you know? And it's like, then you got Trump who's just like, look, I don't agree with everything that he says. I don't disagree with everything that he says, but at least he's fucking saying something, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I mean when the pendulum swung, because next US election, both parties are going to go, okay, we need to do that again. Like, and then Kamala, she's going to go, we need to get her on a podcast. She needs to be trained on how to at least have a 3-hour conversation, because if we don't do that, we're going to lose again. Yeah. Because in 4 years' time, there's going to be more people that expect that now, and it's only going one way. So I think that's good in the fact that, you know, you can't hide in politics anymore. Like, you need to be genuine, you know, whether you believe everything or you think everything they say is correct or incorrect, but there's going to need to be more of those conversations.
Yeah,
there's
for sure.
going to need to be. And if you don't have them, you're going to be left behind.
Dude, I think what happens on a small scale replicates itself on a large scale, right? And I think there's a future for me in Bunbury where I think in a way, I already do have a small say in how things go, not because I'm smart or because I have the best backed information as far as making decisions, but it's because, as I said, I have a microphone and I talk into it. And I say things with conviction, and I try and educate myself on things before I say it, and I base what I say off my own experience. I'm speaking from a point of, like, trustability or vulnerability almost. And I think that in the same way, I would like to one day, if not be on council or a part of council, it's like I would like to be part of the conversation of what's going on in my city. And to do that, it's like I feel now, even having these conversations on this on this podcast as I do, like, once a week at the moment, it's like you're building this idea that at least you're a part of the conversation. You're a part of the brains trust that's throwing ideas around, and it's like, oh, tell me about your, you know, like you saying, like, where do you think, like, where's your religious experience come from? Like, how is that affecting society at the moment? And it's like, even if it's a clip that we take out of this that someone views peripherally, and 3 years from now it's just like, oh, that's that Black Ink guy. Yeah, he I don't know, he's a bit religious for me, but he does think about things, you know? And it's like, that's exactly, I see, you know, it works on the macro, it works on the micro, macro, whatever it is. It works when it's small, it works when it's big. And that's why when you see just a clip of Trump on Rogan, it's like the trustability of being able to sit down and yarn makes me want to believe that he is a better option, you know? There's something to that.
There is.
You're a part of the Shire of Dardanup.
Yes, yeah.
Tell us about the journey to that. Like, what was the inspiration to be a part of that conversation?
So 2.5 years ago, Liv and I moved back down to Bunbury.
Yep.
And other than playing sport, I was getting home every night, sitting on my phone, watching TV, cooking dinner, cycle repeats, right?
Yeah.
Still working salaried at that point, so, like, really, like, just bored, right? And I was thinking, what can I do? Not ready to start the business yet. You know, what else can I do that's not just playing sport or going to bed, right? And I don't know, I was having a chat with the old man and we're talking about it. And my grandfather, Dad's dad, used to be on the show I'd done up as well, 40 years ago. And I thought, why don't I just throw my hat in the ring, give it a crack? I've always been interested in politics and I've always, thought it was kind of cool and wanted to be, like you said, in those conversations, right? Thought there was no chance of getting on. Just I'll throw my hat in the ring and see what happens, right? So anyway, reached out to, he was the mayor at the time, Mick Bennett, and just said, how do I get involved? Like, when are the next elections? What's the process? Like, is it possible? And he said, 100% do it. Because there's aging sort of demographic of people that are going on councils and things, and people are pretty happy to get, young, fresh faces in.
Yeah.
So I think it was October 23, the elections were. And just put my name on the ballot, wrote a bit of a spiel about, what I think is important and why I want to do it. And then, election night, we went into the council and had, beers as they were counting the votes. It was pretty cool experience.
Yeah.
And, scraped in, got in. So
unreal.
Which was really cool. So got a 2-year term, which is up this October. And, I don't know, first 6 months I said, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit there and be a sponge, right? Because there's a lot of new stuff to learn. You got to learn a lot about how local government works and, the process and the procedure. Like it's quite procedurally heavy and intense. And I don't want to be that guy that just comes in, pretends you know what he's talking about and just pisses everyone off, because you've also got to, it's quite delicate. You've got to negotiate sort of 10 other people and, you don't want to piss anyone off, but you want to also stick true to what you believe as well.
How many seats are there?
I think must be 8 or 10.
Interesting.
No.
And then mayor and vice.
Yeah. So there's a few people you've got to kind of keep happy, and it's quite, you'd imagine like that sort of role, there's a lot of people that have quite strong opinions that, put their hand. I think I'm pretty neutral on a lot of things, but that attracts people that have strong opinions, right? Particularly in country towns, there's a lot of people that are quite opinionated, and which is fine. I think we've got a really good council, but you've got to manage that, right? Sometimes something comes up and it is quite a divisive thing. Not often, but sometimes it can be. I think you see it more in you hear stories in the bigger councils. We're quite lucky out there. It's not usually that intensive, but I don't know. I just wanted to be a part of it and wanted to learn how to do that, because that's never been a strong suit of mine, right? Again, we talk about things that we're good at, things that we're not. One thing that I've never been good at is negotiating.
Interesting.
Right? And this is essentially, it's not a direct negotiation, but essentially you are negotiating between 8 different people and learning how to get your ideas across, right? Public speaking in front of 10 people, it's not public, but it's it's important discussion. And, again, I don't have 30 minutes to get my idea across. I've got to explain why I believe this thing in basically 1 minute, right? This is my opinion on this. This is why I think we should vote for it or against it, right? Yes. And within that minute, you've got to get, maybe 4 people in there haven't made their mind up yet. So if, you can change 2 of those opinions, you might be able to get it across. So it's important.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do it for that. I wanted to, grow in areas that I wasn't fantastic at. I wanted to maybe a bit of a legacy thing. My pop did it. It'd be cool to say I've done it. If it encourages my kids to make a ballsy decision down the track when I have kids, how cool is that?
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
My dad fucking went on council. If they want to do something cool, they maybe see I did that and they make a similar decision, right? Whether it's council or whatever it is in life. Seeing that I made those sort of decisions, I think has to be good for them. So I thought, fuck it, give it a crack, and got in, and we're 18 months in now, and it's been really good, starting to sort of probably be a bit more vocal and stronger in my opinions now. I've kind of built relationships with everyone now, so I'm confident
you get
to
a
sort
of a feel of the grounds. Hey,
and you get to a point in a relationship where you're confident to say something you know is going to upset someone, but they're going to be okay with it after, right? And the first sort of year, I wasn't ready to do that, but now it's kind of like, well, your idea is shit. Here's why. You say it a bit more diplomatic than that.
Yeah.
And then if they're not happy with you saying that, then that's on them, because
and also if you're not happy with it, prove me wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
give me a real reason, not just this is what I believe. Okay, why do you believe it? But why do you, not only that, but what's changed your opinion, or what's made you make that opinion? Because everyone's got biases for whatever reason, but it's about working out why you have those biases, or why do they have that? Why does that person believe so strongly that we shouldn't have that third bin?
Yeah.
Okay, here's why, right? Just an example, but I think it's very important to understand who you're talking to.
Yeah. I like the idea, I think it's Brian Callen first brought it to my attention, which is a famous comedian. He said you got to get involved in politics before they get involved with you. So it's like these people are just like, oh yeah, I don't vote, that shit's not for me. It's like, all right, so when they come and tell you you've got to go to war because you're now conscripted or whatever it's called, it's like, is that just still not your problem?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't worry about this. It's like, brother, you live in a society that is governed by people making decisions. If you don't know who those people are and how they're making those decisions, don't expect any fucking, what do you call it, like, don't expect to be able to say anything when things go a way that you don't want it to go.
Mate, you've hit the nail on the head there, and it pisses me off, right? Like, we get a fair few emails of people that are unhappy about things, right? This is rubbish. This decision you made was wrong. Okay, well, put your fucking hand up. Come on the council and help make the decision.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's too much effort. It's too much work. I don't have time.
Watch the council meetings.
Yeah, just have some input. Like, don't just sit there and complain. And same people with people that don't vote. They're the first ones that go, oh, fuck, I'm paying too much tax, or this is bullshit.
The rates have gone up.
I hate Albanese. Okay, well, why don't you actually put in a bit of effort and, you might not ever be Prime Minister, but why don't you at least get involved in your local party?
Yeah.
Whatever that is, who cares who it is, be involved. Whether it's Liberal, Labor or the Greens or fucking Pauline Hanson's One Nation, just get involved in it.
Dude,
don't just sit there and complain.
The Facebook pages.
Oh.
The Facebook pages, it's like, I remember it was the day after the ring road got open, and this person gets on there and puts this big spiel on, I think it's like South Bunbury residents or something. This big spiel on there like, oh, well, what are we going to do for tourism and this and that and the other and the fucking Bunbury Council. It's like, brother, dude, they were talking about this 20 years ago on council. Like, you're waiting until the day it opens. Yeah. And also, like, have you heard this stat? Just focusing on that for a second. Have you heard this stat? 3 million cars a year come from Perth, go through Elup roundabout that aren't Bunbury residents, right? So the stat is 3 million non-Bunbury people go through Elup roundabout per year. 5% of them turn into Bunbury.
Yeah.
5% of them. We're not a fucking tourist town. We're a mining town. We're a mining town that has beaches. We're a mining town that has the Dolphin Discovery Centre. Somewhere along the way, people thought that the majority of our economy is based around tourism. Dickhead, when you go into Benesse, when you go into Little Spencer, look around. How many people do you know? Most of them, we're not a fucking tourist town.
Dude, I'm an optimist, right? I'm an internal optimist. I always have been. But I honestly think that is going to be the best thing for Bunbury in 10 years' time, right?
For sure.
Like, exactly like you said, no one was fucking coming to Bunbury anyway. If they were on the way to Eagle Bay or to Busselton or Dunsborough, they weren't turning in anyway, right? They were going to the Elup roundabout, turning left, and they kept going, right? Now, if anything, it's going to make it more of a destination.
Correct.
Right? It's going to make it more of a destination. It's going to make it more of that place. Oh, we don't go to Bunbury every we don't just go past it now. We've got to go to Bunbury. So I really do think that's going to have a positive outcome in 10 years' time.
I think this concept of Bunbury needing tourism blows my mind. Like, with my business, the core of my business is uniform supply and decoration. I don't take on customers that I can't deliver to myself purely because there is so much industry in this town that I don't need to.
Yeah.
I don't need to add on shipping to my customers. I focus on the fact that as a regional town, I can take on your order, supply it, decorate it, and deliver it in under 10 days, right? That's my whole mission as a business, is to be able to supply that efficiency and that deliverability, because there is probably $10 million in uniforms being bought and sold in this town every year. I don't even need to take the majority of the pie. I just need like a quarter of it, and I will live comfortably forever. Yeah. That alone says to me that the industry you need to focus on, I mean, try getting a hotel room in Bunbury at the moment, any night of the year. The 5th of October was our engagement party. You couldn't get a room in this town for if you had $1,000, and nothing was happening. Nothing was happening because we have so much construction and mining going on. I mean, yes, it was probably in the peak of the outer ring road being built as well, but we have so much shit going on that it's all full of people who are working. We're not a tourist town. We're a fucking mining town with a beach, you know? So this idea that the outer ring road is going to majorly affect our economy, if you've got a problem with it, you can literally watch the live stream council meetings on Facebook. You know what I mean? There is no excuse. I can't get down there at 5:30 on a Tuesday. Get a fucking life. Yes, you can. And also, just stop scrolling for a minute. Yeah. And then B, you don't need to voice your opinion on Facebook because you have a profile. Yeah. Like, that's literally all it is. It's just like, because I've seen this page and now I'm a part of it and someone said something that I don't like, I'm going to go and make a comment about it. Like, why? Why? Do you think the councillors are sitting there going like, oh, I'm a fuckhead. I didn't realise I was a fuckhead until I saw James's comment, you know?
Yeah.
I just don't.
But I think even expanding on that a little bit, right? I think even in general, you don't always have to have a strong opinion on something, right? I think we've got to this point now where everyone thinks they have to have an opinion on something, right? And this is a bit contradictory to what I just said, but I'm talking about the extreme examples here. And you see a bit of it on council, right? You know, we'll be debating an idea or something, and someone feels like they have to just talk for a minute and repeat exactly what someone else just said. It's like, well, you didn't need to say that. We all agree. You don't need to have a strong opinion on something all the time. You don't need to voice that all the time. Like, it's important to voice your strong opinions, but not in extreme circumstances and not all the time. Like, sometimes I just shake my eyes and roll my eyes because it's people just go out of their way. I think sometimes you see it on Facebook all the time to voice an opinion that's so not needed. Yeah, and it's ridiculous. Exactly with the Outer Ring Road. Like, first of all, you're 10 years too late. Second of all, we can't do anything about it now. So why don't, instead of looking at the issue, let's look at a solution. So I look at it and go, okay, well, Eagle Bay, Busselton, Dunsborough, growing like crazy, right? They're not going to go any further south because it's too fucking cold, right? So the only way they're going to get growth is inland. People don't want to live not near the beach, or north. What's north of Busselton?
Us. Yeah.
I truly think like that corridor, Bunbury to Busselton, is a huge growth corridor, right on the beach, good beach, warmer weather, and then Bunbury being the hub, like without a doubt. And even the Busselton Airport, man, I think that's going to be huge for Bunbury.
Oh yeah, like if you look at it on the say 50-year scale, and say we're 20 years into that 50 years, we have all of the like, what do you call them, strong points, with the fact that you've got Bunbury growing as a medical hub, right? So we now service all of the medical needs between here and Albany. Right, people travel to Bunbury and stay in Bunbury to use the services that we have here medically, right? You got, as you said, the airport in Busselton. You've then got a tourist like cluster of hotspots between, what would be the furthest you'd call it? What's just past Margaret River there? That little Augusta. So you go like Augusta through to the jetty, right? Because as I said, like I don't see Bunbury as a tourist town outside of swimming with dolphins. Like a great coffee we have on offer. Cool, but like swimming with dolphins, that's about it. So you've got tourism, industry, medical. It's like this really is like, go buy yourself a 10-acre block in Stratham and just sit back and wait. Because you're right, if there's not a spare beach between Rockingham and Iluka in Perth, what's to say that from Joondalup to Augusta is just going to be a continuous fucking line of wealth? When literally there is not a household anywhere there, like there isn't like at least a certain percentage of households where people are flying in, flying out to not even like 1,000 kilometers away, where they're continuing to mine shit out of the earth that's worth heaps of money for everyone involved. Yeah,
and that's not going to stop. Like we are in one of the most resource-rich nations in the world. We're so lucky to be that, and I think just you've got to have a positive outlook. But I do genuinely think like it is a good spot to be for sure. Oh,
dude, we live in like heaven. Yeah, we actually live in heaven. It's crazy. The weather's good most of the year. It's like we're rich. We're on an island, so it's really hard to fuck with us unless you're China and you just buy up all the land and whatever. But like we live in, it's really expensive to live here, which weeds out the men from the boys as far as your. Oh no way! I got a fucking cramp. That sucks. That's good content, baby.
That's very good.
That's how you know this shit's real.
I like it.
Oh my god.
Need some magnesium, brother.
That snuck up on me. Yeah, that's 4 shots of coffee before 10 a.m.
Nice.
Oh, and we're back.
Cramps and all.
Yeah, that was
getting to that age, aren't we?
Yeah, dude. And what's next? Incompetence or something, eh?
Oh, not far off.
All right. We live in a great corner of the world. We'll wrap that up. Is there anything else you would like to touch on before we call it a day?
What's your 12-month plan for your business?
Make $1 million, take over the world.
Nice.
Nah, next 12 months, I think we're at a point now where it's like just let the wheels turn. We've finally got to a point where we have a great space. We have all the equipment we need. We have all the experience we need. We've like narrowed the scope to know what we're doing, which I think is like at the start of business, I don't know about your industry, but like I just said yes to everything. You know, like it's just like, yep, cool. I can print a sticker that's this big. I can decorate an apron for you. I can screen print this. It's like now it's like we do uniforms, and we do uniforms really well. We do T-shirts and uniforms. That's what we do. The occasional thing, like I did a shop front the other day, a bit of sign writing. It's because no one's buying uniforms at the moment, and I need money to live. So this year, like I'm just excited to get this fucking holiday period out of the way, start some baby little marketing campaigns, and just 2 big clients a month. Yeah, 2 big clients a month for 12 months. I want to do $1 million a year next financial year, which I think is very doable with what we have as far as equipment, staff, and like the amount of time that it takes to execute $1 million a year. I think with what we've got right now, that's possible. So it's just setting up for the beginning of the next financial year and then just fucking launching this thing. So that's what 2025 is all about. And also, like, I'm so doubtless. I'm like fearless and doubtless. It's just like I want the time to come to me so I can do the thing, you know?
For sure.
And what do you got for next year?
I think I'm one stage prior to you, right? Yeah. So just sort of settled in. For now, it's like, okay, how do we get things done a bit more efficiently? So like I said, the onboarding process is time consuming.
Yep.
Once we've done that, it's butter, right? So how do we get that process more efficient? How do we, shorten that time frame of onboarding a client from 3 months to 2 months to 1 month, right? Without ruining the client experience. So, it's about just tightening the screws.
Yep.
Just like quickening things up, making sure that there's not any wasted time, making sure that client experience is perfect, right? Because that's super key. But it's just, efficiencies within the business, Yeah,
it's fucking, it's so cool. It's so cool. I feel like if you take any sort of, it wasn't so long ago, you're on a wage, and you're kind of sitting there and you're looking around, you're like, these are the walls till I'm 60.
Yeah.
And now it's like, even I feel like you're, like for us, I know what we dial in this year still won't be the thing that we end up doing. And I feel like that's the exciting part about business is the dynamic will continuously change. The economy will change, the industry will change. You might find in 2 years' time where you're focusing on this, you're like, right, it's not that we don't focus on that, but we do that so well now that we can kind of just let that rest and now we focus on this.
Yeah.
And it's like, for you, it might be in 2 years' time, you're now ridiculously into golf because that's where the real customer relations happen. And now you're like, I get up at 6:30, I'm taking this fucking dude out, we're going to play 6, and by the time we're done, he's going to be a client.
Yeah. For sure. And I think that another struggle I'm having, right, is, and you would have this as well, is like highest and best use of time. An old boss of mine used to always say that, right? Don't you go buy the carton of beer when you're paying someone $80K a year, make them go buy the carton of beer.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what can you be doing that's revenue generating or is going to bring in the business, right? And it's stuck with me. It's good advice.
Yeah.
So for me now, I'm having that problem of, okay, up until 2 months ago, it was just me. Got a staff member now, but up until 2 months ago, it was just me. So I was doing everything from, booking the meetings in my calendar to scanning the documents in to having the client meetings to investing the funds, right? Whereas now I've got the support staff. So it's like, okay, how do I hand off these roles? And that's the thing I'm struggling with, right? Like, okay, instead of doing this admin shit that, this other person can be doing, how do I then hand that off in a way that's productive? It's not, I'm not wasting her time, but at the same time, saving my own time. So that's an issue, but like it's something I think we're going to constantly learn how to do that. So how do you manage that? Because you got Riz helps you out a bit. So how do you?
It's a great question.
Manage that?
Because you've got delegation of responsibility aligned with perfect timing. So you don't want to be handing off your admin stuff too soon, because before you hand off that job, you kind of have to, unless it's a skill that it requires previous education or training, whatever skill you delegate to the next person, you have to understand inside out. So Riz is in production. I do all of the printing with the new machine, even though that falls under the category of production. Because once I have mastered that, then I'll teach her how to do it. Now, when we're getting it installed and they're teaching us how to do it, they're teaching both of us, purely because Riz hasn't gone through the process of learning intricately a process enough to teach someone else. It's like, okay, someone has to learn this from scratch. It is better me because I have learned the vinyl cutter and printer and I have taught her how to do that. Now, when she has a problem, she comes to me and says, how do I do this thing, right? So now with this printer, it's like, I can't just go, there's your printer, you learn how to use it, And then when there's a problem, you can come and ask me. Well, it's no point me coming in on the ground floor and she's at floor 4 and saying, I don't know how to do this thing. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to do anything.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to be able to time those things and go like, okay, I'm now going to, even though I don't have the time, you're a business owner, you've got all the time. What are you talking about? Even though I don't have the time to learn how to do this thing and take out 2 hours every day to go out and do a print and go through the process and fix this little struggle and learn how to do this, and now this doesn't work and I've got to call this person, now the ink's expired, what does that mean? And all these things, I'm now at a point now where we're 6 weeks into having this printer and I can start to teach her step by step, what does this look like, what does this feel like, when this happens, don't worry about that, worry about that, all of these things. So then you expand or you kind of zoom out of what that is, right? So now I'm starting to do my customer comms and admin. I'm trying to delegate that to my bookkeeper. And you go like, it's not really it's not contextual to her, you know? But wasting my time on that, for me, isn't contextual to the greater plan of the business. I'm better off teaching her this thing and having her really good, even if it's just doing those first 5 pieces of interaction, even if she is just the filter of the criteria that my customers have to fall to. Because I have good and bad customers. We all do.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, even if her job is just understanding, you're the filter to make sure by the time they get to me, they're a valuable customer and we actually want them to do business with us, you know? So then you go, okay, I can't have done that a year ago. And if I wait another year, it's going to be too late. So you have to go delegation of that skill or of that requirement of your business in perfect timing so that in giving that responsibility to someone else, the time that you get back, that's valuable, but it's also valuable to the person who's doing that job for you.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's a wild thing because, again, like I said, everyone in business, no one fucking knows. You think when I was making coffee 10 years ago that I thought this is where it would be?
Yeah.
Like last week, I was solving the problem of getting an aircon installed in the middle of summer. What the fuck is that task? Yeah. You know, who teaches you how to have those conversations when you have to? I mean, I don't, for the sake of the conversation, I'll use the words, but whoever thought that you'd have to learn how to emotionally negotiate a task like installing an aircon with someone who that is their job? But that's what was required of me. So I had to solve that problem in that time. And then you're going like, I've got to do a print and I've got to get this person paid and I've got to try and get this done before Christmas and I've got to do all this. Yeah, my fucking printer's warranty is going to be void if this thing gets over 30 degrees. I've got to do a fucking aircon first. And I can't delegate that. Hey, Dad, can you please get an aircon installed? He doesn't understand the necessity of this right now. Yeah. I can't give it to my admin lady. I can't give it to Larissa. I got to do this right now.
There's one thing I've learned over the past 2 months since having a staff member. It's only us that are going to understand what the priorities are.
Yeah.
Like, because it's our bank account. It's our livelihood, right? Like, it doesn't matter as much to them and it never will, which is understandable.
Yeah.
But only we will understand priorities within the business, right? And I'm so lucky. The girl that works for us, like, fantastic, very, very close to us in regarding to understanding priorities. Like, good example is the other day, like, was waiting on a rollover essentially, and we're waiting on this rollover before we can get paid. And I said, look, can you please make this a priority? Because if this doesn't happen, we don't get paid, right? Yeah. And complicated, but essentially if it didn't happen within a couple of days, it would have been another month, right?
Yeah.
And then she was on the blower like 3 or 4 times the same day and like was sending me notes along the way. And I was like, yeah, she gets it.
Yeah.
She's good. She understands like why this is a priority, because if we don't get paid, the lights don't stay on, and she doesn't get paid.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about trying to teach them the priorities as well. And if they understand it, that's key.
You know, in Grand Theft Auto, you can only see on the map where you've been before, right? So there's a whole map and there's like big dark areas, and until you go there, you don't know what's in that area. I feel like that is your business. And it's almost like beyond that, because then there's areas in your business that if you forget to visit, if it's been 2 months since you've checked your zero reports, or you've checked your process, or you've checked your customer experience, or you've checked your feedback loop, or you've checked your email marketing, then the spider webs appear and eventually it's just dark again. It's also your job to make sure that you're navigating the amount of light that you show on that map to your employees. Because in order for my wheels to turn without any friction in my business, there are certain things, certain anxieties about the business that Riz doesn't need to experience.
Yeah.
She doesn't need to worry about this person hasn't paid us. She doesn't need to worry about this ink has expired. She doesn't need to. What she needs to worry about is that there is the job card, there is the order, there is the products coming in, and there are the transfers. Put them together and tell me when they're ready to deliver.
Yeah.
Because if she's there going like, oh, fucking, such and such hasn't paid us and this, and then, I'm not going to get paid, right. It's like all of a sudden the production thing that she's meant to do turns to shit. And then there's no fucking point having her doing the job at all.
Yeah.
So it's like, here, I'm going to shine the torch on your part of the map, right? And there'll be a time when you've got to worry about this and this and this. And maybe there might be a time where we actually completely turn that torch off and we just now we go, okay, you don't like doing production? Cool. Let's pay someone, $1,000 a week just to do production. That's just what they do. What do you want to do in the business? You actually belong over here. Cool. Let's get you doing just that. That responsibility as the person who holds the torch for everyone, that's a skill, because you're doing this for yourself, torch, and then that person comes in, so you grab their torch and you're like, just production. Yeah. They start looking over here at finances. You're like, no, just production. That's a skill.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I've made the mistake of them going like, why is this even important? And you're like, well, actually, here's the production line, because if you don't do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, and then the lights turn off. And then their anxiety goes astray. Their anxiety in that situation should be the placement of the logo on the shirt and it being pressed for long enough. That's your anxiety.
Yeah.
But I mean, how weird where the analogies you have to make to wrap your head around business just never end.
Yeah. And it never ends, man. It's my favorite thing about it, to be honest, is that dreaming about it. All I think about, driving a car, all I'm thinking about is what's on that to-do list today. Love it that it never stops, right? But even, Christmas night, we'd had lunch, we're sitting on the couch watching a movie, and I was like, I'm fucking bored, get the laptop out, trying to find at the moment a good software to manage that client process, right?
Yeah.
And, trying Trello at the moment. Have you used Trello before?
I haven't.
No. And just I find with new software, I get, a month in it and it just doesn't work the way I want it to.
Yeah.
And then I'm just changing it over again and just trying to find something that fits. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, again, trying to get that process more efficient and trying to make sure I'm across it, because there's a lot of boxes you need to tick. From a compliance point of view, if we miss something and we get audited, it's big issues.
Yeah.
So just trying to find what is that software that we can plug into the business that's going to make it hum, right? But yeah, haven't found it yet.
Yeah, and I think also that, so I get that endless list that you've got. I find it, I've got an endless need for progress.
Yeah.
And yesterday I woke up, hey Riz, we'll go for a drive. We'll check out the new ring road because we haven't driven it yet. Go check it out. And she's like, yeah, cool. And I've gone outside and I'm like, I'll just print this off because I got to replace this for that person. And then on the way to doing that, I'll drop off that order. That'd be good because he'll give me some cash and I can use that because I need to go in and get this and put money in my account. And, you start going progress. And I walk in, I'm just like, I'm just printing this off. And she's like, aren't we going for a drive? And I'm like, yeah, I meant at some point today, and she's like, well, obviously now because we go for drives in the morning. We get coffee and go for drives. And it's like, the skill of not progressing.
Yeah.
The skill of being there for your fiance. The skill of being a family man,
It's hard to balance.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. And to be able to translate that into progress.
Yeah.
I'm progressing my relationship. I'm progressing my lifestyle, my happiness.
Yeah.
It's
all about balance. Like you said before, the good and the evil. It's balance.
It is.
Right. And same with business. We're at that stage now, and obviously had this conversation before we hit go on it, but I was like, Liv, these next 2 years, this is my priority. You're always going to be a priority, but the next 2 years, I need to give this 110%. Otherwise, there is a chance it will not work.
Yeah.
So it's they're sacrificing too, right? And I'm sure Viz is the same.
100%.
They get it. And obviously, for them to be with us, they see our vision as well, and they go, babe, in 10 years' time, this could look like this.
Yeah.
If we don't go to Vanessa every Monday morning for a couple of years.
Yeah.
If we sacrifice this short thing now, we sacrifice the salary, we live within our means for a little while.
Yeah.
This can be the outcome. And they see it and they support us for it.
Man, it's without kind of going too into it, because obviously it's quite a personal thing, there have been times where, it's Riz might not want to do this, or we as a couple might not want to do that, that's in relation to the business. And it's like, look, we can have the other end of the stick if you want. We can both work full time, not see each other 8 hours a day, 9 hours, 12 hours a day. We can leave the dog at home by herself 6 days a week. We can be in debt. We can drive bullshit cars. We can go on a holiday once a year. We can sit there driving trucks and being at our job wondering what if. That is the other option. This is really fucking hard. It's extremely hard. I don't take away from the experience at all, but the possible ceilingless future that we might have if this goes right completely supersedes any sort of lifestyle you can get from normality or mediocrity. That is the payoff.
I think Jocko Willink says it best. He says, choose your hard.
Yeah.
Right. So running a business is hard. You know, balancing your business and your personal life is hard. You know, living within your means is hard. But you know what else is hard? Working a fucking 9 to 5 that you hate.
Yeah.
You know, going on that one holiday a year. All those things you just said, they're all hard too.
Yeah.
So what hard do you want? I don't know about you, or I know what you want. You're the same as me. You want the business hard.
Yeah.
That's because the payoff is so much down the line. It's not even questionable.
But this is the thing, man. Like, I remember when I was, you know, skating, like it was an international athlete, you know what I mean? Like a professional athlete. I remember when I was skating, and when I first twigged on that, you're like, the better you are at riding hills on a push bike, the stronger you are on your skates. And there was something that just like clicked one day, that I was like riding up this hill, and I realized that I was like this much, but I was this much better than the majority of people around me at riding up hills. And I would just attack them early, and then halfway up I'd see it in their body. They're just like, oh, they're hurting. And I'd push a little bit harder. I was hurting, but I just aesthetically, visually, I was like, oh, you're a bitch. You're a bitch. I'm stronger than you. And I don't even need to like, I just need to pretend for a moment that I'm stronger, and I'll mentally fuck you to a point that now beating you is easy. I don't actually have to try that hard. So yeah, you go past someone and you just look at them. You just stop breathing for a second so you can hear them breathing and they can't hear you breathing. They're going, what the fuck is going on? And all of a sudden, I love the pain of going up hills.
Oh, dude, I've got something for you. Exactly the same as that, right? So how much more motivation does that give you, right? When you see them struggling and you're not struggling, right?
Yeah.
For me, so I won't get into it too much, but like when I left my job, it was a bit of a process, and I had really good relationships with the guys, but it wasn't a nice ending, right? Lawyers got involved and shit. It was pretty messy. But now my office is like quite literally, you know, over the road from where I used to work, right?
Yeah.
I make sure that I'm there before those lights are on.
Yeah.
And I make sure I leave when their lights are off.
Yeah.
Same thing, right? Like outwork them.
Yeah.
So like for me, it's like I want to make sure I'm working harder than them. So every time I leave work, whatever time it is, and those lights are off, I'm working harder than you.
Yeah.
I'm winning. You know?
100%.
So like for me, that's like the motivating factor.
This goes back to the analogy I made about like, what's the ultimate version of you? You know, like what, like the best possible version of Jake or Jack that is a businessman, what do? They get to work before him. Do that. Pretend to be that until that is it. Because the first day you get there and you're like, oh, I had to wake up half an hour earlier and I feel like shit and all that. And you sit there and you watch their lights turn on. You're like, oh, I beat you.
Yeah.
I beat you. And then when you wake up tomorrow, Tuesday morning, 4:30 alarm goes off. You're like, oh, remember that feeling? And when I went past them up the hill, and when they looked at me and they're like, oh, haha, bitch, I won. I've already won. I've already decided that I'm going to win. You've already decided you're going to lose. So now replicating, and this is the thing, that's the first step. Then the second step is let them see you at Little Spencer with a new client. Let them see you at Little Spencer with one of their clients, you know? And all of a sudden you're like, well, this version of me that wins, that excels, that pushes, that whatever the next step is to do better is doing that. Let me do that. Let me replicate that perfect version of me until I get to a point where I'm like, fuck, I don't know, I guess there's not much more to do. I mean, they have a better diet. They go to bed earlier. They've got an exercise routine. They've got a breathing routine. They only hang out with winners. You know, they're good to their wife. They paid off their house. All of a sudden you start going like, fuck, I'm actually the sort of person that wins. I'm actually the sort of person that every direction I look, every perspective I try and perceive myself through, it's all good. It's all in the light, you know? And then start back where you started. It's like, what was the first thing I focused on? Okay, I just want to fill in the blank, you know? And there's something like, that's not hard when you start doing it. You know, the hardest thing to do is the very first day where you pull the rug out from under yourself and you're like, I'm a fucking loser right now. I got bad habits. I don't like who I am, you know? And I mean, anyone who knows me reasonably well knows that, like, I used to smoke weed from the first moment I woke up until the first moment before I went to sleep, last moment before I went to sleep. Dropping that in the middle of this, like, reconnaissance of who I am as a person was so fucking easy because the best version of me didn't do it and I was trying to be him. Dude.
Yeah.
That's all the proof I need.
Yeah.
How crazy.
Yeah. I love it now when you look back and you go, you know, we've got a bit of history now. You know, we're not 18 anymore, right? We've got scores on the board, right? Runs on the board. And it's looking back, and at the time, you know, you don't know whether you're winning or you're losing, but you look back now and you go, they were little wins, you know?
Yeah.
And I look back now and I go, fuck, I actually won a lot more than I lost.
Yeah.
So it's about keeping that momentum and making sure that we keep doing what we were doing. What made us make that decision then is going to make us make a decision now. Okay, they're different decisions.
Yep.
Instead of, are we going to go out again on a Saturday night? It's okay, are we going to work a bit harder today? You know, it's making those same wins and making those decisions be wins. But it's finding what motivates you, right? Like finding it's like that candle inside. And I think people like us have that. And it's about finding what keeps that lit even when days that are shit, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, do you watch cricket?
Fuck no.
Oh, one day you'll learn.
Yeah,
but,
apparently.
Man, yesterday, like, long story short, one of the batters got fired up and then it just made him tee off and he did really, really well, right? For me, it's like same thing. Like if someone pisses me off or tells me I can't do something, that's my candle, right?
Yeah.
So when I first started the business, I heard through the grapevine from an ex-colleague that one of my old bosses said to him, oh, he needs to do this and fail for him to realise that he can't do it. And I was like, fucking watch me. Now I'm never quitting.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Now I will not stop, right, to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like for me, that's my candle. So it's things like that just make me go, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Dude, Mr. Santa Maria in year 4 in Port Hedland, like for the fucking, you know, umpteenth, 100th time I'd been sent outside and because I used to, you know, disruptive as fuck. Like, I remember going to school. My whole goal was like, just don't get in trouble. Just don't get in trouble. And just like, I, you know, went to say something or just did something, and he's like, outside. I was like, yep, fair enough. And I've gone outside, and fucking as he walks out, I like start crying. He goes, oh, fucking bring on. I remember it clear as day. Bring on the waterworks. Silence. Jake, you're never going to amount to anything. I'm like, brother, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And by the way, dickhead, I hope you're still teaching in Port Hedland, telling people they're not going to amount to anything, okay? Because fuck, the weather's nice down here, brother.
How good is that?
But yeah, it's like that.
Yeah.
For years, that rattled me so hard. And now I just look back, I'm like, thank you, man. Thank you so much. Because that was 100% the drive I need to be like, I don't know what I'm going to be, but it's going to be something.
Yeah.
It will for sure be something.
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
good.
Yeah. And like also going back to what you're saying about the perception of all those things where you look back and you go like, oh, it was actually baby win, baby win, baby win, baby win. A lot of those at the time were losses, you know, like having a shit person walk out of your life and thinking at the time, like, you know, whether for whatever reason, you know, if it's a friend or a girlfriend or whatever, like my heart is broken. And it's like that person leaving you was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I remember I fucking chased this girl down to Europe and she ended up coming because she was going to live in Europe. She ended up coming back. And then we broke up not long afterwards, and I remember being like, I'm such a piece of shit, you know, and a part of me still believes that, you know, for them it was bad, for me it was bad. But that's one of those things where I look back on and reflect on decisions that I make now and just go like, make sure before you do this big thing, before you go to Europe to chase a girl down, before you sell your Harley to make that happen, before you put someone in your business to run it poorly while you're away, before you do any of that, really fucking make sure you are sure about this decision, you know? Because I've made the biggest decision and committed everything to it to follow it through, and I was still wrong. I lost then. When I look back at it now, it's like in a way of learning, and obviously for the sake, just in case she's listening or for whatever reason, I don't think it was a win because I got to use someone else's poor experience to my advancement, but being able to learn from that and say, yes, I am the sort of person that will literally give fucking everything to prove myself right or wrong. Just make sure that it's worth it before you do it, because your actions do affect you in a major way and they do affect other people in a major way. It's the same as Riz right now. I asked her, I asked her, living in a caravan with nothing to my name, if there's ever a time you're going to support me, it's right fucking now, because I think I can do this, but I just can't do it alone, and I don't have any money. I need you to support me.
Yeah.
I don't need you to support the business. I just need you to support me while I support the business.
Yeah.
And she said yes.
Yeah.
And thank goodness I have the mentality of someone who doesn't give up, because now it's starting to come to fruition. And it looks like, I feel it definitely will, but it also looks like from the outer point of view that this is going to turn into something, you know? So it's like, cool, let's take these things that perhaps were wins, perhaps were losses, whatever they were back then, and use them to our advantage and understand in a greater perspective of what the world is and who we are and how those two things come together and how you experience the world and help other people experience the world. It's crazy.
And the best thing is you get to experience it with the women you love, right?
Wild.
Like going through these crazy times, these challenging times, but these super rewarding times, and times that we're going to look back on when we have made it. We're going to look back on and go, fuck, those were some formative years. Those were some outstanding, stressful years, but I wish we could live them again. And we're in that moment now, like that,
Man.
the business building years, man. Like you speak to anyone that's successful,
Yeah.
they always say it.
This
When
is
we
the time.
didn't know if it was going to work,
Yeah.
was the best time.
Yeah.
You know, the exciting time, the
I say this all the
exhilarating
time, like
man.
that.
Like,
Literally, fucking Robert Kiyosaki, thinking. No, Rich Dad Poor Dad. The 10 years that he was broke at the start were the best.
yeah,
And I never understood that. And I remember reading that, thinking like, I don't have 10 years of being broke ahead of me. Like I'm going to make this work into. It'll probably be 10 years. And fuck it, man. How fun is it?
yeah,
Because you might be broke, but you don't go without.
yeah,
You know.
yeah,
It's funny, you reminded me of something that I thought of. I remember being maybe 25, 26, 27 and thinking like, fuck, the best part's done now. Like the fun of partying and, you know, having what I perceived as all the opportunities and all the options, you know, which was, you know, drugs, nights out, girls, partying, cars, you know, that's all behind me. That is not a fucking speed bump on the Richter scale of cool shit now. You
Zero.
know, like
Means zero.
I would give 1 week of this life over fucking all of the partying that I had between like 20 and 25.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, we did a good majority of that partying together. You know how much fucking fun we had. But it's like it still doesn't compare to waking up at 4 o'clock in this house, drinking my water, praying and going through the process.
And there's one reason as to why, because that was for us independently, right? There was no one else benefiting for that other than us, right?
Yeah.
It was all for us. But now we're doing something that's not for us. It's for Riz. It's for our families. It's for Liv. It's for our future kids. Like we're building this baby, and it's not. We're going to see rewards. That we're going to have benefits of it too. But we know that we're not just doing this for ourselves now. It's similar to religion. It's like it's for a bigger cause. It's for a greater good.
Yeah.
Right?
Push instead of pull. I said this on the last podcast. I used to party for me, and now I party for the boys.
Nice.
And it makes me not want to party as much, because it's like if I really want to do something for the boys, we'll go running on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
We'll hang out on a Thursday afternoon. Like today we're going to the cinemas and then going to the beach afterwards. Like how much better is that than waking up tomorrow morning going like, what did I say?
100%.
You know?
Anxiety, man, just kills it. Can we pause? I need to do a piss. Is that right?
Yeah.
I want to keep this going.
Hell yeah. And we're back. I love how both the fucking neighbours are like, let's cut our lawn now.
At the same time.
Oh my God. No, it's good though, because if it didn't pick up Gage's voice the other day when he was like 20 centimeters away from the microphone, then hopefully it doesn't pick up those.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
not for us now.
Yeah, it's not for us. And that I remember, because like I edit these to a point and then AI edits the rest.
Yeah.
And it just kind of spits out these clips. So you see what I guess is determined by AI as the most valuable moments, but essentially it's like
Interesting.
AI is filtering for a micro conversation, cutting it down, putting captions over the top, and then you can kind of fuck with it a bit and then upload it. So that's why you see all of my clips are essentially the same.
Yeah.
But I was watching that, and the top clip that it cut out was the fact that I don't party for me, I party for the boys now. And I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And it's forced me to kind of have this perspective of like, obviously, like I throw a lot of stuff just out there on the podcast, because it's like it is an opportunity just to kind of like test how you feel about things, you know, because not very often you get to like actually rant about something without someone going like, oh, I don't agree, or like they're looking at their phone, you're like, I've lost them, it doesn't matter. But it's interesting to go like, is that how I feel? And also, how interesting is it that AI is like, that's one of the most important parts of this whole hour and 20 conversation, you know? And yeah, it is. And then you saying that unprompted just then really like hones that in. It's just like, it's true. That was selfish endeavors. You know, it was like, what can I pull from Friday night? What can I make of this weekend?
Yeah.
You know, whereas now you're like, well, if we don't have enough drinks for all of us, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know? And like, as much as, you know, like thinking about it right now, actually, you know, you're doing something Friday night. So you're like, oh, I'll have a drink at 2. And you're like, no, we'll wait until we're all here and we'll have our first drink together so that we're all as drunk as each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? It's such an interesting.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, it is.
It's maturity, I think.
Yeah, I was talking to Gage about this. I'm almost leaning towards having a pretty sober year next year, I think.
Nice.
Because it's, I've always had this thing in the back of my mind. One day I'm going to choose that I want everything, and that's when everyone needs to be careful, right? Because when I decide I want everything, and there's going to be like no late nights, no smoking weed, no fucking around, no impure thoughts, like it'll be everything. Everything is committed in one direction, one purposeful, decisive direction. And I feel like I'm getting dangerously close to that. And it just means like I don't have a week to recover from one night.
Yeah. And it's a week now, isn't it? It's not a day.
Dude, it's fully a week.
It's fucked.
And it's not like on day number 6, you're like, oh, I've got a headache and all that. It's like, you know when you're back. Like I know I'm a fucking animal, dude. Yeah. I've got enough energy to last from when I wake up to when I go to sleep, and I'm still going to sleep going like, I just want to keep going.
Yeah.
And then you'll be day 6 after a hangover and you're like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you're like, oh, I'm going to go have coffee number 4. You know, like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
I know when I'm tired after a client meeting that I'm not at my best.
Yeah.
Right? When I leave a client meeting or a client leaves and I'm like, yeah. Or even with the coffee the other day, when I leave a chat like that and I'm higher than I was before I entered it, I know I'm at my best. But if I have a big weekend the whole next week, you know, maybe the client doesn't notice it, but I certainly do.
Yeah.
I certainly do.
I always go A-B reality.
Yeah.
Like that same situation. How did that go if I didn't go out on Friday? You know? Like we had a pretty big, last Saturday night was pretty big. We bloody went Christmas light watching and then spent 6 hours on the beach and then came back here and very tiredly kept on just yarning on the lawn here, just talking about all sorts of things till the sun came up. And it's like the only reason why I really justified doing that was because we're leading into Christmas and no one's buying shirts, you know? And even then, like, yesterday was horrible. I didn't do a single thing, even though I had that progressive list of I'll print this, deliver that, rah. I literally went to bed anxious because I didn't, you know, there's recycling boxes that need to be broken down and put in the bin, and I need to cut the lawn, and I need to do this and I need to do that. Like, there's something about where if I didn't go out last Saturday, would those things have already been done? And if they had already been done, then what does that let me do on Monday? That I'm now going to be doing on Monday? What could I have been doing instead? Could I have progressed my business? Could I be closer to that $1 million a year? What does it look like? You know, and then that shit rattles me.
I find it actually brings it back. Have you heard of the 80-20 rule? You would have heard of it.
Yeah, 20% of what you do generates 80% of your income.
Yeah. And I feel like that 20% can't be done when you got a list of shit to do, like break down boxes. Or when you got a list of the mundane stuff that you've just got to do, the shit you've got to do, the 80%. You've got to do that stuff, right? When you're doing that, you're not doing the 20% of stuff that's going to bring you 80% of your rev.
Correct.
So for me, it's like, get that out of the way as quick as I can. So like, even today, we're going for a couple of hours and just get rid of that shit that I don't have to do, that I don't have to think about. So then when I get into the office tomorrow, you know, you're focusing on that 20%. That list is down. So now you're thinking about how can I bring those efficiencies into the business or whatever it might be? How can I bring in these new clients, right? You can spend time on that 20%. You can't do that when you've got that 80% to worry about.
Yeah, I think also like if you're a like positively incentivized person, you go, how do I get more 20% of my life? There's almost something there where you got to do the 80%, the other 80% effectively as well. You know, like I have delegated time to do the dishes. I've delegated time to make sure that, you know, that you shower properly, that you do all those little things that need to be done, but then also making sure that like, right, that 20%, whatever it might be, needs to happen between like 8:30 and 11:30 in the morning. because that's when I know I'm my most powerful.
Yeah.
If I'm breaking down boxes at 9 o'clock in the morning, I've done myself a disservice.
Yep.
You know?
100%. And dude, for me, that's client meetings, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm my peak probably 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, right? Yeah. So I have a meeting at 10 and a meeting at 1 or something, right? Like pushing them in the morning. If I have to have them at 4 o'clock, I do, but I prefer to have them in the morning because I'm definitely a little bit more tired or a little bit fatigued by 4 o'clock. The client's not getting the most out of it. I don't have the highest chance of converting that client, right? If it's at 4 o'clock. If it's at 10 in the morning,
yeah.
I'm
bloody people who want to do things at 5 o'clock at night. It's like, brother, I don't want to sound like I'm 80. I'm having dinner at 5 o'clock. You know, it's. What's your like? I've only just really like honed this in probably the past couple of months. What's your criteria of an ideal client or customer?
An ideal client for me is someone that needs advice and someone that can pay for advice.
Right.
They need to be both of those things, right? Financial advice is expensive. It's like anywhere from $4,000, right? It's expensive. So someone with 20 grand in their bank can't pay that, right? Yeah. So for me, an ideal client is like a pre-retiree. So someone that's 50, in their 50s, wanting to retire. One, they definitely need advice. There's a lot of strategy we can add. We can add them value, and they've got enough money to pay for it. So that's an ideal client for me.
Right. And I guess I'm trying to pressure test it from a few different angles. Realistically, that's all it takes, eh?
Yeah.
And I guess also someone who's willing to take on advice as well.
Yeah, someone that needs advice, right? Like, you know, I have a lot of engineering clients. They can be hard because they're, very particular with things. They really look at the modelling. They look at everything with a fine-tooth comb. So, it can be hard to deliver the advice, but they know they need it. That, again, like I said, highest and best use of time. They shouldn't be spending time worrying about their super when they could be worrying about, bringing in revenue for their engineering business or working in their job or spending it with their family, right? It's outsourcing. It's like anything, Hopefully you get to a point in life where you can outsource a lot of things that aren't bringing you the best value. For them, they and clients see the value in my advice, or they wouldn't stay with me.
Yeah, of course.
Part of my thing is like if I can't prove them advice every year, they're not going to sign on for the next year.
Yeah.
So I need to add them and show them the value every year, and that's part of the job. But they see it. I always say to clients like, work with me for a year, and if you don't like it, leave. But
I'm pretty sure I can
100%. After 12 months, you're not going to want to leave. And they don't.
What's your we've touched on this in our own conversations. What's your up-to-date perspective on crypto?
Honestly, I do not invest in things I don't understand.
Yep.
And I have not had enough time or want to understand it.
Yep.
So for me, I look at it like going to the casino, right? If you want to go to the casino and have a bit of fun on a Saturday night and spend $500, go for it. No issues at all. But if you're investing your life savings and going to the casino and putting your house on black, maybe an issue.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I've said that for 10 years and look what it's done. So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to do. But for me, I don't invest in things I don't understand. I understand shares. Yep. I understand property. I understand infrastructure. I understand term deposits. I understand those sort of investments.
Yep.
I understand currency, but I don't understand... I understand to a point, but not enough where I'm comfortable investing my clients' money.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Particularly my type of client. Like I said, most of my clients are in their 50s, in their 60s.
Yeah.
They've got no interest in it. And they don't want it. So it's not something I've really spent too much time professionally looking at.
Yeah.
I don't think, like I said with the casino analogy, right? Like it's diversification. So if you want to allocate 5% of it, of your funds, of your investment portfolio, or 10% to it, I've got no issue with that. Yeah. But I wouldn't be putting in 50% of it into crypto.
That's where I'm at. I'm like 10%.
Yeah.
Or 10, 15%. I mean, obviously it's my algorithm. It's my peers. I know people who, and this is the thing, like I don't look at it as something that is going to outperform the rest of my portfolio. I'm not like, oh, this is like a saving grace or a Hail Mary. It's like, this is more just, I'd hate to look at it in 15 years and go like, why didn't I put something in?
And that's a diversification tool, right? And I would never ever argue against someone doing that. But like I said, it's just not something I recommend to my clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, like different stages of life, right? Clients that are in the retiree, which is sort of where my clients go to, right? They go to retirement and they start drawing down off their money, off their super, right? So for them, it's about income. So it's dividends. They want to pay their pension payments. They need cash in their bank account, right?
Yep.
You don't get that with crypto. It doesn't pay you a dividend.
Yeah.
So it's about the capital growth. So it's different. When you're young and you're accumulating and you're growing, you need the capital growth, right? When you're retirees, pre-retirees, it's not about that. It's about getting the income. So we go to the Australian shares, the term deposits, things that pay you interest or dividends. So it's a different stage.
Yeah, it's definitely, and also I feel like we're now old enough to know that, like, I mean, hell, I remember when Bitcoin was at nothing, like literally like point something, and you're like, obviously you go back and you're like, brother, just get $100 and buy as much as you can for $100. You know, and back then $100 would have seemingly been hard to find. And I just take that same sort of mentality and go, okay, well, there is a market cap on it. There is, you know, if you do the maths, Bitcoin is going to be worth $1 million a coin minimum in not that long. You know, if everything keeps going the way it's, and I see everything going the way it's going, as in like, we don't find out that the creator isn't actually the CIA, or, you know, that fucking China doesn't become a main superpower of the world. And
the issue I have with it is that the commentators of crypto and the people you're listening to on YouTube and things, there's a conflict of interest because they've got a heap of crypto.
Yeah.
So they're the ones telling us, oh, you know, crypto's going to go to $1 million a year or whatever. The reason they're saying that is because they want it to, because then their asset base increases. So that's literally a conflict of interest in my opinion, right? So I would like to listen to independent commentators that don't have a conflict, that don't have a vested interest in it. But you don't have that, you know. Find me someone that doesn't invest in it, understands it, right, and then goes, yeah.
All right. So in the structure of that, someone who says, I believe in this thing that I'm invested in, that I have a major, not a majority, but a major investment in, compared to someone who is commentating on something that you should invest in that they don't have any invested interest. Like, I just see it as like the company behind S&P 500 that controls our EFT. It's like, I'm not invested at all, but I trust in this thing that I have no stake in the game, that I also have no fucking idea what face to that name is, you know? And it's like, I kind of see them as two of the same because no one knows who made Bitcoin, you know? The only real, I mean, it's the biggest one, so we kind of look at that as the example, but it's like, we know who made Ripple, we know who made XRP, we know who made Solana, we know who made Dogecoin. We do know who is behind that. I feel like no one really understands what the blockchain is or how it works or any of that. But also it's like, because the existence of these, you know, EFTs in the stock market, because it's been around for so long, it has this trustability. And even though we don't know who's in the emperor seat, we still trust it more than this thing over here. I feel like I will listen to someone who's invested in it and who does have a conflict of interest, because if I also get into it, we both win. Whereas this thing over, and I'm not saying it's this or that, I'm just saying like I do find that there's this, I still want to trust. Yeah. I still want to believe.
And like I said, I don't know enough about it. But for me, I go, and I understand the store value argument, right? I understand that. And that's probably the biggest thing it's got going for it, because there's only ever going to be so many.
Yeah.
But then I look at a share. Let's look at like Commonwealth Bank, for example, right? Or BHP. It's probably an easy one to understand. When you buy a share of BHP, you are literally buying a very, very small fraction, but ownership in the whole company. So the dozers up in Port Edlin and the train tracks, you know, through the Kimberley, like, you literally own a very, very small portion of that. So that income producing asset, that's a company that's making a profit, right, and then distributing profit to its shareholders, you own a portion of that and you are entitled to a portion of that.
Right.
If the company goes belly under and has to sell all its assets, when it sells its assets, you'll be entitled to a portion of the asset sale, right?
Right.
So for me, I understand that it's producing an income, it's producing a profit, it's something, it's a business, right? So you're buying a part of a business or property, you know, you're buying a property, even if it's a exchange traded fund and there's property within the fund. You might not know what funds it is, but you know, there might be an industrial property in Sydney that you own a small portion to, so you're entitled to that income, right? So for me, I understand that as an investment piece, but I don't understand enough anyway to invest my clients' money in crypto or coins that aren't providing you with an income. And I get the inflation hedge argument, and it's the same with gold, and I put gold in all my portfolios and I guess that's the same thing. It's just the capital appreciation, but gold has a use. You know, you can literally make jewelry out of gold, or you can, you know, it's backed against whatever. But for me, I see a use in all of those assets, but I don't, you know, and I guess it's similar to a currency, but I would never buy a currency in the hope that it's going to inflate in value, right? Like I don't understand it.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, like everything that you're saying makes sense in my mind.
Yeah. But I've been saying that for 10 years and it's like 10x or however many X since then.
Yeah, so it's again incomprehensible.
It's not financial advice.
In the for fuck's sake, don't listen to me, please. Unless you want to pay for it, then listen to me. But I've just been like peripherally watching it. I mean, back in the day, 7 years ago, a mate and I were like, yeah, we'll be crypto bros. Before crypto bros was a thing. And we had like thousands of dollars worth of XRP and thousands of dollars worth of Ripple. I think those were the main ones because Bitcoin was at like 4,000. We're like, that's fucking gone. Who cares about that? You know, it's too expensive. And I remember he was like, and I think one of them I bought at 11 cents. And I checked like yesterday or the day before, and it's at $3 something. And you're like, that's cool. Over 7 years, it's pretty cool. And I was like, fuck it. I've got my next slot because, you know, I invest $1,000 at a time. Every time I save a certain amount, once I get to 1,000, I invest it. And I was like, I got another 1,000 to spend at the moment. So like, fuck it, I'll just get some crypto. So I've like made a CoinSpot account, and I verified it. And it's like, you've already got a verified CoinSpot account. I'm like, oh my God, did my account that I forgot about have something in it from way back then, even $100 worth of something that's now 10x?
Could you imagine?
Oh my God. I'm like,
what was the outcome?
I don't know. I literally had this realization last night. And I was like, when I wake up tomorrow morning, it's the first thing I've done. I woke up this morning, I'm like, I got to set up for these fucking podcasts. So if you look on my computer screen right now, it's trying to log into my old email account to search, and they're going like, just CoinSpot, please, anything.
What is the username?
Oh my goodness. Nice. So yeah, that'd be nice if we, that'd be a nice start to the year if I find out. Cool. Dude, just $1,000 would be sick right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I definitely have a space in my mind for going like, you know what, I'm happy to throw over the next 12 months like $5,000 into various cryptos and then just hodl forever.
Yeah.
You know, just see.
100%.
Because I mean, I told you the last big sort of advancement or kind of level that I hit was I got over the next 1,000 over what I've invested. So I got like over a certain number. Well, it's hovered there ever since, and now it's dropped back under. So you're like, okay, cool. You know, like it's a long game. I don't care about that. But also we had like nice growth. It's plateaued. Now it's just dipped just a little bit. It'll go back up again. I'm sure it's just the end of the year type shit. But it's also like a time where you go like, oh, just in the time I've been paying attention to Bitcoin, it's fluctuated $10,000 and it is at a dip. Now, even if you buy it and it drops another 50,000 and then goes back up 100,000, it's all still good, baby. You know, like you say, when you go to buy stocks, if they're down, they're on sale. If they're up, things are normal, you know?
And investing in anything over 50 years, there will be times where it's down 50%.
Yeah.
Like I said to you when we started buying these shares, like, do you need this money within the next 10 years? If you do not invest in it because that's the risk. You know, if a client comes to me, doesn't matter how much money they've got. Jack, I've got $1 million. I want to invest it. Okay, what are you doing with the money? What are your plans with the money? If they say, oh, I don't need it for 20 years, it's for retirement, whatever, then let's go. Fucking gravy, right?
Yeah.
But if they say to me, Jack, I want to buy a house in 5 years or 2 years, then we're not investing the money. Yeah. We're going into term deposits or we're going into a high interest cash account or something, because the risk with owning a growth investment like crypto or shares or property or anything is we buy at one time and we need to sell at another period of time, right? If that period of time is short, there's a higher risk of that being in a negative position, which is when you lose money. So the longer the time horizon, the more risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah.
So like you said, if you're going to hold these crypto assets forever, then there's probably not a lot of risk. Maybe one of them will do really well and make up for the other four or whatever. But the longer that time horizon, the more risk you can take. So if you don't need that money until you're 60, then there's no issue.
Yeah, dude. It's funny because like I've only really had that perspective in the past, however long this has been, I say like 6, 7, 8 months. You start looking at everything where you're just like, oh, if we just get a little bit lean on the shopping 4 weeks in a row and save an extra $500, might be a bit exaggerated, and then just put that 500 somewhere and forget about it. You know, it's kind of like putting $500 in a book and then putting the book in the bookshelf and then pulling it out 2 years later. You're like, oh my God, it's still worth probably worth a bit less. It's still worth $500. Now I just have this 500 that I just forgot about. It's like, what can I be doing now that I can forget about in not as many possible things? Because you don't want to have $500 in 900 different books in your house, you know, but it's like, what 10 things can I just slip $500 into every 6 months or every 2 months? What does that look like in 10 years? Because realistically, we only need, if we put enough chips on the table, we only need like 1 to 5 things to land out of 20, and it's fucking worth your while. You know, it's kind of like I'm going to bet $2 on every horse in the Melbourne Cup. One of them's got to win, you know. But I've got another question for you. Me and 5 mates all want to do something now. We all want to pool our money into something that will pay off in 5, 10, 20 years. in an ideal scenario, what is that thing and how much money do you think that takes?
Oh, it's a crystal ball question, mate.
It's hard, hey?
It's impossible to answer that. Like, and the biggest question I get is, okay, I've got this sum of cash. Should I buy an investment property or should I put it into shares? And the answer is, I don't know.
Yeah.
No one does. If they say they do, they're full of shit. So no financial advisor is going to be able to tell you yes or no to one of those things, right?
Yeah.
So question, why do you want to do it with 4 business partners rather than just doing your portion yourself? Because
for sure.
For me, I go, okay, well, the outcome's no better, right? I mean, you've probably got a bit of scale there, which could help. But for me, your percentage of whatever you invest in is going to be your percentage. Whether it grows or goes down, it's the same.
Yeah.
You just have the issue of having to deal with 4 other people and balance their decisions. So if you buy, let's say you buy a commercial property between the 5 of you, right? You set up a trust with an accountant and they basically, a unit trust where you own 20% each or whatever, and then you borrow the money to then buy this property.
Yeah.
That's all well and good. But then what happens when one of you needs the money? So one of you goes, oh, I want to buy a house now, or, you know, having a kid or whatever it might be. I need to get my money out.
Yeah.
And the other 4 go, oh, fuck, we don't have the money to buy you out. So the only outcome is you have to sell the property.
Yeah.
So like issues straight away. I go, that to me, there's added risk there when you don't need it.
Yeah.
I'd say if you really, really wanted to say commercial property was what you wanted to do, right? Me and 5 mates wanted to buy a commercial property, $1 million commercial property. I said, okay, well, that's fine if you really trust them and you know that the outcome's the same and you've got a contract in place or whatever. But I'd say I'd rather buy a smaller commercial property myself.
Yeah, take on all
the risk.
Yeah.
And then you're not having to deal with other people and their changing circumstance. Because whatever they say now, they go, no, I do not need this money for 10 years. We've got a 10-year time frame for this to do well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what happens if their wife gets sick or their kid's sick? You don't know what's going to happen in this world, right? Life changes all the fucking time.
Yeah.
When you got 5 people, something will happen in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years that affects everyone else. So I don't know, man. I'd be against it.
Maybe because I'm a great believer in like, oh man, my friend starting a clothing brand. It's like, fuck your friend off, you figure it out. You know?
Yeah.
Like I believe in that. I believe in getting into business for yourself. I think the thing that I look at is like this idea that ideally your whole family would live in one house. So instead of having 5 mortgages, you've got 1 mortgage. You know, and it's like, yeah, you live on top of each other, but it's like if you all got incomes that are all pulling into one account, that one account is paying the mortgage and the bills and this and that, and almost like you're drawing a wage from that one account rather than, you know, dad earns more than me and I am, and all these things, you know, like you hear of, especially like there seems to be particular nationalities who do this really well, where they all live in the same house.
Yeah.
And
I saw it in Serbia.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You know, and it's like literally you have 3 generations and in every direction living in one house, and they've got nice cars, they've got a real nice house, they all dress nice, they've all got money in the account. That concept to me works really well.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
Go on.
The lifestyle of that too. Like that's what I noticed. Obviously the financial benefits are huge, but you know, the scenario I saw in Serbia when Liv and I went to Europe, we caught up with a friend that I went to uni with. She was a Serbian girl out here doing exchange.
Yep.
And they lived in this sort of same site, like 4x2 sort of house. But then each story was a kid. So the parents, I don't know, say they're on the bottom story and there was 3 stories above and each family had their own house.
Yeah.
So grandma's close to look after the kids. Your uncle and aunties are all around. There's more kids to play with.
Yeah.
Like it looked like such a nice lifestyle. So obviously the financial benefits are obvious, but I think there's something to say about being around our family more than we are. I think we're missing that now. Like
100%.
It's how we evolved. It's how we got to where we are. You know, now it's sort of we live so segregated from our families. I think we're missing something. So you're on the money,
dude. Even like I'm telling the boys, like as these houses come up for sale, live in the cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
like we should all live next to each other. And it's not just like, oh, so we can all hang out. And it's not like, you know, at the moment one lives in Australind and one lives in bloody Victoria Heights, whatever it is. It's like, it's not even about that. It's just like when something happens, you've immediately got that fucking, you know, and like dad's looking at a house around the corner. It's like, yes, live around the corner. It's going to be easy to look after your old ass being around the corner than it is fucking, you know what I mean?
I can't remember who it was. I was listening to a podcast a couple of months ago and he was talking about, I don't even know what the word was, but hanging out with your friends and doing nothing, right? So we're all very busy, whatever. We're doing a lot. But like he said, there's a lot of value in just being with your friends and doing not a lot. Just shooting the shit, you know, having a beer, whatever. Not even having a beer, but just hanging out on the couch and just doing nothing, just being with them.
Yeah.
And you get that if you're closer to each other, right?
For sure.
Like, well, I used to live around the corner from Jack, and we'd do it all the time. You know, Ash and Liv would do the same thing, and we'd just be there for 4 hours, and we wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have the TV on in the background, and you'd just be laughing and playing around. Like, there's so much value in that, and you get that if you live in a cul-de-sac or if you live close to your mates. It's much easier to do that. You're not going to drive to Oshelin just to do nothing. Or it's a lot harder.
It's always a purpose.
Exactly right. Let's go do this, or let's go for a coffee or whatever. But it's not the same, right? If you live on the same street, I'm just going to go walk down to Jake's house, and we're going to sit there for 2 hours and do nothing until we've got to do something.
Yeah,
right?
I think there's a greater thing there that we don't. I guess it's like kind of woo-woo type shit, but it's like leveling your vibration. It's like just getting to a point where it's like, I'm not trying to achieve something. I'm not going around to their place to organize this thing, or to like, we're going to do this and then do that and do that. There is something to like, and I find it, I go to Dad's place to whatever it might be, to drop something off or pick something up or talk to him about something. And then it's like 45 minutes later and you're leaning on the fence and you just yabbering. You're just doing nothing, and you're like, oh fuck, I need to do more of this, and then you try and organize that, and it's different because you organized it. But yeah, there's something like, I always go that, what's the ideal scenario, work backwards, not like what can we make happen. It's like no, if we had everything the way we want it, it'd be like, oh cool, this house will go up for sale, and then George would buy it and he'd knock it down and he'd build a big beautiful 2-story house. He'd have a pool so we can use that as well, and then Aid would move in the next house because that's got enough room for a boat. He'd have a boat so we don't have to have one, you know what I mean? And then I would set up the fucking sauna and the ice bath over here because they fit in perfectly, and then they could just come in the side gate and they could, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it turns into like, it's not even about, like, oh, we all get to use each other's shit. It's like, no, we all get to do what each other has with each other all the time. You know what I mean? And then when like you're crook and something's going on, instead of it being like, fuck, I got to go do the drive all the way out there and then try not to fucking, it's like, no, I can literally just walk out the door and be like, there's a couple of meals and this and that for you. Let me know if you're in trouble. I'll go sort it out for you. It's like, that's so cool. That's so fucking cool. And that is the ultimate when you think about it. It's like, finally, we're adults. We're literally powerful beyond what we even understand. And we can do something with that power rather than just go like, oh, we'll go to a festival and buy a commercial amount of drugs and see if we can finish them all before the weekend's over, Yeah. It's like, don't get me wrong. That's fucking still pretty cool, but it's not the best possible use of that power.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think the question of like, all right, there's 4 of us and we all want to do something together. It's like, in my mind, it's almost like, do we buy some like self-storage units and then just keep the 4 in the end for us and knock out all the walls and put like a pool table in there and like we all put our motorbike toys and, like that sort of stuff in there, and then go like, cool, at the end of the day, it's like this has got a passive income that we all get to not even take, like maybe take dividends off it, but it just keeps pooling to then go, okay, we're all going to go on a 3-month fucking trip around the world now. Well,
a good example of that, my old man and 2 of his good mates, they bought a commercial boat.
Right.
And they're doing like tours, like Christmas parties and things.
Unreal.
Dive tours and that. Bought it because they wanted a boat to go fishing on and they wanted it to be a tax deduction.
Yeah.
And they're just doing the business on the side to keep it afloat. But the business has got to the point where they don't have any time to go out on the boat. But like, it's something like that, right? And even that's an excuse to hang out with your mates. So we're gonna use this business as a catalyst to then build that relationship and hang out on a Saturday away from our wives or whatever it might be, right? Yeah. To give us that break, doing something we love. They love diving, they love fishing.
Yeah.
And then if it's going to bring you in an income on top of that, like, that's butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, like, you then, especially when you're in business and you start going like, oh, the world is just built by people who decided to do something. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. What can we see ourselves doing organically together? Like, what do we know we like doing now? It's like, okay, let's start there, build a business around that, and then build the ultimate control around that, which I think always ends at like buying the property or buying the boat or buying the thing that facilitates that thing happening. And yeah, it's just like, I think you just have this conversation as many times as possible before you pull the trigger on whatever that thing is with as many smart people, because then you'll find like, you'll go, fuck, I don't know. But my dad and his mates have got a boat. He talks to the next person, it's like, I don't know, but they own storage units. And you talk to the next person, I don't know, but they got a mini golf. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think there is something in our future there. And it's exciting. It's really exciting.
Yeah. I think if it's going to be more of a business, it's different to an investment. I was getting the opinion it was more of a passive investment. Yeah. Where there's not a lot of stuff to do. But if you're going to do a business, it's different. Or a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you understand the difference there?
Yeah, for sure.
Buying in a commercial property and letting it sit there, there's risk. But if you guys are all going to have involvement and a bit of more than just skin in the game, like it's a hobby at the same time. then
Yeah.
it's different.
See, I've got this very, very interesting side project that I can't say who it's with or what it's about, but next year I'm collaborating with someone who we're really taking advantage of each other's skill set and building this thing that I say if it works, and I say if because you always put the footnote of like, look, anything can happen. We're both like, either of us quit, so it'll work. This thing has a potential to be bigger than the business that I have, not the business that they have, in a way that it's like, it will start as a side hustle and turn into the main thing that we do. It's got so much fucking legs, and it's because the part of the business that they'll control, they're exceptionally good at. And the part of the business that I'll control, I'm exceptionally good at, you know? And as much as I'm very good friends with this person, and I would only go into that with the idea that we're doing this because it's a fuck around and we think it could work, cool. If it does work, makes heaps of money, great. I like hanging out with this person.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool thing that I get to do with this person. They think it's a cool thing they get to do with me. We've been talking about this for years, and now we're in a position where it's like, we kind of were having a conversation the other day, and you're like, bro, we can do that now.
Let's go.
Like everything's kind of set up now that we can actually do it. Should we do it? Like, let's do it. We're doing it. Okay, we're doing it. Cool, we're doing it. You know? And so then you go, okay, now we started having that conversation, say 4 years ago. Now I think I'm starting that conversation with my real tight-knit group of friends where it's like, boys, like we've all got money now. We've all got freedom. We've all got this ability. We've all got this power. How do we direction this, point it in a direction where it's like we can actually turn this into a thing?
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucking exciting.
Yeah,
it's exciting. And it's like I'd love to get to a point where in 5 years' time it's like, cool, let's sell the uniform thing. Let's take all that money and fucking put half of it over there and put 20% over there and just use this last 30% to then go, right, now let's do this. You know, are you ready to pull the plug on your thing and plug into this? Yep, cool. All right, let's start a fucking time zone 2.0, you know?
Nice.
Which would be sick.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's good.
Yeah. All right, I have to we're 2 hours 20 in. This is
really?
this is the
nice.
longest podcast that I've done in a minute.
Nice.
This is beautiful. Oh, minus a piss break and
Flew.
everyone catching starting their fucking lawnmowers, but
That's good, mate. Thank
we
you.
done well. Do you want to talk a little bit about your business and where people can find you?
That's all right. That's all good.
No? I'm going to put all your links in the thing anyway.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thanks for coming on the pod.
Thank you, Jake.
We've tried to make it happen for like a year now.
Yeah,
So
the timing was right, like you said. It seemed fitting.
yeah, had to wait till we had a gazebo to do it.
I wanted you to be in the South Bunbury place, mate.
Fucking oath. All right,
Thanks,
guys.
mate.
Be good to your mum. We're fucking out.